Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. David in for Ian today, who's got some time off with the fam. David, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Even after yesterday and what was a wild and crazy show. Glad to hear you're doing well. By the way, what a great sports night last night. The football game was incredible. The hockey game last night. Oh, my God. What a win for the Predators. Barry Trotz will join us at 5 o'clock, as he always does on a Tuesday, so we'll talk to Barry about that. And in 1 hour, we will discuss what happened last night with the Predators, because that was a freaking great win over the defending champions right there at the buzzer. So we will be hitting that at 3 o'clock. But I want to start with this. Yesterday, people were mad at me. A lot of people were mad. And I guess I've learned in life that there's never going to be any way, at least for me, to make everybody happy at one time. And at 5 o'clock yesterday on the program, I took the approach of what I would do if I owned this football team. If I owned the Tennessee Titans and I was watching the disgraceful performance that we saw on Sunday against Jacksonville, looking at the disgraceful season that the Titans are having, which was not an expectation this year, what I would do to fix it. And I told you I'd clean house. And unfortunately, that includes the general manager in his first year. And people were mad about that. I guess nobody's mad when it comes to Vrabel, right? Like when I say that, hey, I'd love to trade Vrabel for picks at the end of the year. I would love it if, there was a bidding war for his services, or that Robert Kraft just couldn't handle it, so he gave me 2 first-round picks, or what. I would love it. Love it. But right now, it's not working with Mike Vrabel. And it doesn't feel like Mike Vrabel has any answers to figure out how to get it to work. And I think a lot of people agree with that. I don't think there was umbrage that was taken with the decision to move on from Vrabel. But when it came to Rand Carthon, that's when people got upset. People were, how could you do this, Jared? I had people on Twitter calling me racist. And I can tell you, when it comes to the Titans, I am not racist, I am not sexist, I am not anything. If you could make a green woman the general manager, but you told me that the Titans were going to win, I'd do it. So I do not care about that. But to me, there are 3 options. And again, this is from the position of if I owned the team. And what I said yesterday, so that there's no confusing, is if I owned the team at the end of the year, I would be prepared right now at the end of the year to clean house. That when the season's over and the Titans are 5-12 and the season is mercifully over at the end of the year, Jacksonville at home in front of 25,000 people, that on that Monday, we are going in a different direction. We're not going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. So to me, that gives you 3 options. The first option is my option. Clean house. Start over. New slate. No more it was this guy's fault, or it was that guy's fault, or it was this person, and John Robinson screwed this up, and A.J. Brown got traded there, and Mike Vrabel's assistant coach here, and no more. We're firing the coach, firing the general manager. We're clean slate, going to go get a GM. You've got a full draft outside of the 3rd rounder you used for Will Levis. You'll probably have anywhere from the 4th to the 9th pick in the draft for a new GM and a new GM to hire a coach, so that those guys are in lockstep and have a traditional football operation run the way I believe a traditional football operation should be run. And let's not kid ourselves. You guys keep talking about cap money. Oh, they're going to have the most cap money. And while I've explained to you many a time that the cap's not really real, that does probably put a burden on ownership that, you guys are going to have to spend money this year, because there's going to be so many players that are gone in free agency that you're going to have to replace some of them. And because of the cap space, which is the way to convince fans, we can't spend any more money. The fact of that, you're going to have so much of it that you're probably going to have to spend on that. So I can tell a new general manager, hey man, you got money, you got picks, you've got a clean slate, you go get your coach, And then we'll decide if we like the coach or not. This is going to be something that the owner and the GM have to agree on. But then you're in charge of the football operation. He's in charge of the field and the coaching staff, and on we go. Now, that's expensive, but I'm willing to do it. The second option is what I think many of you would check, but I can't speak for all of you, which is you would fire Mike Vrabel but not Ran Carthon. And here's what I don't like about that. Now I continue the perpetual blame game cycle, which is something that permeates the NFL that is going to continue until the end of time. As long as the NFL is played, the three-man blame game cycle between the quarterback, the coach, and the general manager will continue, and I don't like it. Remember when they first got good again, or at least first got competitive again? They were the worst team in the league, and Whisenhunt got fired, and Rustin Webster got fired, and they cleaned house. Now, they didn't let the GM hire his coach, but other than that, they cleaned house, started over, and they got competitive again, and everybody was happy after that first year. But then the second year, the offense somewhat sputtered a little bit. Mariota threw 13 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. There were questions about whether or not he was the guy. Now, they ended up winning a playoff game and getting beat by Tom Brady and the Patriots in the playoffs, which is nothing to nothing to scoff at. But remember, Mike Mularkey was holding the team back. He's holding Mariota back with that exotic smash mouth offense. He's leaving the Maserati in the garage. He got fired. Then it was Mariota who was holding the team back. He got fired. Then you got good. Then it was John Robinson holding the team back. He got fired. And now it's Mike Vrabel, the guy who never got any blame last year, who never got any blame before that, who the only smidge of blame he got for the first 5 years as head coach was over that non-defensive coordinator thing in 2020. But now it's Mike Vrabel who's holding the team back. And I just don't believe in that. That cycle of, it's the GM's fault. Well, we fired him. Okay, well, now it's the coach's fault. Okay, we fired him. Now it's the quarterback's fault. Okay, we fire him. And guess what? That's what's going to happen here. You fire Vrabel, Ran Carthon goes out, spends your money. If you don't win, then it's his fault. And then they're going to bring in somebody new there. And then after that, it's going to be Will Levis's fault. And then they're going to fire him. And they're going to bring somebody new in. And I just don't like that. And I know it happens. And it's kind of inevitable. But I don't like it. So I don't want that. And I know that this seems like the option that many of you are in favor of. But if the roster is the biggest issue and not coaching, and you added Andre Dillard as your top free agent acquisition outside of lucking into DeAndre Hopkins, then talent evaluation is on the list. And the third option, which I think some people believe, and I think the overwhelming consensus of the local media believes this, keep everyone and blame John Robinson. I don't want to do that because I don't think John Robinson gave Aaron Brewer $4.3 million as a backup undersized guard to play center when he can't snap. I don't think John Robinson let David Long Jr. go in free agency and replace him with another backup like Al Shire. John Robinson didn't draft a guard at 11 overall ahead of a franchise quarterback. So to me, if you own the team, this is not Jared Stillman saying to Amy Adams Strunk, Amy, here's what you have to do right here. Here's the roadmap. She'd do whatever she wants. It's her team. But this is what I would do. And again, those are your three choices. Clean house, fire the coach, keep the GM, let him spend $100 million, let him draft fourth overall, or keep everyone and just blame John Robinson. I would pick choice number one. And I don't feel bad about it either. And I don't think I owe Ran Carthon anything. A lot of people are like, you're not even giving him a chance. I don't owe him a chance. That's not how this works. You owe him money if you fire him. You don't owe him a chance. And I didn't hire him, so I don't. Why do I owe him something? He had a shot. This commission between him and Vrabel, the collaboration. They had a shot, and they took a 7-win football team, and they've turned it into arguably, and we will see for real on Sunday if you're the worst team in the NFL, but arguably the worst team in the league in one offseason. Is it fair? Absolutely not. It's not fair. But the NFL is not fair. Just ask Mike Mularkey if the NFL is fair. Just ask Jim Tom Sula if the NFL is fair. Just ask Dave Ziegler of the Raiders, who got fired because of Josh McDaniels, if the NFL is fair. You know the NFL's not fair. Todd Downing probably thinks the way he got treated here wasn't fair. That's the league. Ryan Tannehill probably thinks it's not fair that he's on the bench. And I'd argue it's not for him. You gave him no line. You traded away his best receiver. Well, I mean, what's he supposed to do? But it's not fair. It's the NFL. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to weigh in on this, 615-737-1025. Man, a lot of people were mad, too. Like, you can have your opinion. I'm just having mine. So Joe Rexrode responded to this by admitting that he didn't hear what we said, but I did think Robbie did a nice job this morning of kind of laying out our plan here. And Joe has a response. And now I have a response to Joe's response because I think Joe is forgetting the history books. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company. Of course, your phones. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
yesterday was a travel day for me, so I was not able to listen to Jared. Can you? How about you? Any other greatest hits from Jared yesterday?
Well, I was at Bridgestone when he started talking about this, but the gist of this, from what I gathered, is that if he were the owner, if he were in charge of the Titans, he would be prepared to clean house at the end of the year. He's not making any in-season firings, but he would be prepared to clean house. And he said that means the coaching staff and the general manager at the end of the year, is what he said.
You know, Jared had a pretty, I think, effective and dead on rant or series of rants last year that I agreed with, which was, see, that's what loser franchises do. When he was talking about the John Robinson in-season firing, do you know what loser franchises would do? They'd hire a GM and then fire him after a freaking year when he inherited half of a tire fire. That is so stupid. Like, if they actually would consider that, and I'm talking they being Amy, her,
Yeah.
you know, she has no clue what's going on.
This
franchise is screwed.
There you go. That was Joe to this morning saying, if they consider that, they would look like an even bigger loser franchise. Joe, look at the draft order right now. I said that the reason why I was so, trying to think of the right word, scared maybe, that the reason that they fired John Robinson in the middle of the season last year, the way they did it, the reason I was so disappointed or anxious, scared when I found out that it was, no, he didn't think he was doing a good job, so they just fired him that day, was because I was like, oh my God, that's what the stupid teams do. And it brought me to the realization that my favorite team might be a stupid team. And I don't know if you guys have watched the games since they did that, but what happens to stupid teams is they can't get out of their own way and they turn to crap. And that's what's happened here. So when Joe says, well, you'd look like a really stupid franchise if you dissolved what I'm calling this the commission between Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel. Because now everybody wants to tell us that, oh, no, don't forget about Chad Brinker and Anthony Robinson and the assistant coaches. And so the commission, that's what we're going to call it. So that I'd be a stupid franchise if I dissolved the commission after 1 year. And let me say, on that Monday, on January 8th, after we lose to Jacksonville, and again, I'm owning the Titans here, after we lose to Jacksonville and we fire the coach and all the assistant coaches and the GM and everything else, we would look like a stupid franchise for 1 day. But let's think about teams that have lived in that space. Teams that have had these grandiose plans. And then after a year said, whoa. Number one, San Francisco. Remember 2015 to 2017? Jim Tom Sula for 1 year. Guy was farting in press conferences. Chip Kelly. Remember Chip Kelly was going to come in and save Colin Kaepernick, and then he went with Blaine Gabbert over Kaepernick. They had Chip Kelly for a year. They couldn't get out of their own way. Then they cleaned house, and they hired Kyle Shanahan. And the rest is history. Go to the Super Bowl in 2019. They go to the NFC title game in 21, the NFC title game in 22, and it looks like they're probably headed back to the NFC title game with a rematch of the Eagles this year. I'd say San Francisco made the right choice. What about Jacksonville? Team that just beat the crap out of you yesterday. You've now lost to them 3 times in a row after you went through a stretch where you never lost to them. I cheered the day that Jacksonville hired Urban Meyer to be their head coach. I remember when it happened, and I was like, yes, that's so stupid. Shad Khan's in love with a college coach. And not only that, like, most college coaches don't work in the NFL because a college coach is just a bigger a-hole than you can be in the NFL when those guys make money. But Urban was chief a-hole in college football. And so they hired him, and I knew it wasn't going to work. And I loved it. I celebrated it because Shad Khan got his guy. And I remember the late Mark Howard was like, well, I could see, maybe. I was like, no, this is going to be an unmitigated disaster. So immediately, Jacksonville realized Urban had no idea what he was doing. And after he stuck that finger right there down that girl's jeans, they ran him out of town. They looked like a stupid team. They were the embarrassment of the NFL. We laughed. I laughed. You laughed. But it's hard to look at Jacksonville right now with Doug Peterson as the coach and the way that they're winning football games and laugh at them, isn't it? So, yeah, they had this grand plan. They paid Urban all that money. They gave him all that power. He got rid of all those players. He drafted all those guys. And they looked like fools. Don't look stupid anymore. And then there's the Texans. How dumb have the Texans looked since 2019? Bill O'Brien becomes a total doofus. They give him full control. And he made their version of the A.J. Brown trade when he sent DeAndre Hopkins to Arizona. Then there was the Deshaun Watson fiasco. Then there was David Culley and Lovie Smith. And I thought both guys, Culley and Lovie, got bad deals. Like, I thought that they were decent. I thought Culley was a pretty good coach. That team was terrible, but I thought he did a pretty good job. And so as bad as that whole situation looked, and the one and dones, and the way that they treated Culley, and the way that they treated Lovey, as bad as that looked, and you know it looks bad, and it looked awful when Houston won the game against Indianapolis last year to lose the number one pick to then turn around and fire Lovie Smith. But doesn't it look like the Texans are headed in the right direction now? Wouldn't you trade places with the Texans? So the franchises we've laughed at and called stupid franchises because they were doing stupid things, all of a sudden woke up one morning, got a clue, and said, whoa. Enough of the dumb stuff. Like, let's cut our losses, let's move on, and let's get it right. And that's what I'm talking about here. Because I thought it was stupid when you fired your general manager in the middle of the season. And had they waited until the end of the year to fire John Robinson, let's say that John Robinson didn't mean anything. Let's say that the Titans were on a collision course with a 7-game losing streak, which I don't believe. I do not believe when they left Green Bay at 7-3 that they were headed to a 7-game losing streak. But let's just say that's what happened, even with Robinson there. And they had said at the end of the year, we're going to fire him. Like, we've had, we like John, and John did a great job for us, but we just didn't feel like we were headed in the right direction, so we're going to move on from John. That's one thing. But to fire him in the middle of the work week when you're getting ready to play Jacksonville, when you're still in first place at 7-5, and the owner doesn't even talk to the press about it, that's what stupid teams do. And then when you take a head coach who the best he's ever done was go to one AFC championship game, and you basically say, all right, we're going to give him more power. He just lost 7 in a row, but we're going to give him more power because he acted like a total piss pants in the draft room when we traded away A.J. Brown. We're going to give him more power. And they hired Rand Carthon, and they got up there and said, oh, yeah, it doesn't matter who's in charge here. I thought, oh, God. And everybody thought that behind the scenes there was somebody who was in charge. I think people still think that. I think people still think that there's one guy who holds the keys to this franchise. I'm telling you there's not. And having an organization where nobody's in charge is stupid. So when Joe talks about the stupid teams, I'm like, what you did was the making of a stupid team. What you are right now is what stupid teams do. But to realize, holy crap, we have dug ourselves into a hole. And we've got, some outs here, right? We've got a high draft pick next year. We've got money that we'll be able to spend. That's your way out of the hole. Are you going to let the same people, the same people that brought you Andre Dillard, you're going to let them do this? To me, I think it shows leadership, and I think it's the right thing to do to stand up there and say, yeah, that idea we had wasn't very good. We screwed up. But we're moving forward. That, to me, is what smart teams do. That's how you get smart. How did Jacksonville do it? They went out and they got a guy who knew what he was doing. That's how you do it. How did San Francisco do it? They cut out the Jim Tom Sula bullcrap, the Chip Kelly college offense, and they went and hired the guy who made Matt Ryan the league MVP. That's how you do it. So when Joe talks about firing a GM after 1 year, you'd look so stupid. I'm like, okay, for 1 day, I can live with that. What I can't live with is being what the Raiders are, where their own stupidity took them from a team that was a goal line stand away from beating the Bengals in the playoffs to the absolute crapper because they fell in love with the Patriot guy. I'm not interested in that. So I guess, again, I'm fine with being the stupid team for 1 day. I am not fine with being the stupid team for forever. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phone, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. So Mike Vrabel refuses to do something that another coach, a better coach, a more accomplished coach today said, I'll do it. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on the program, 615-737-1025. Bavarian Beer House is Nashville's only authentic German beer hall. It's a place full of fun, food, music, and most importantly, beer. Enjoy traditional German bratwurst, schnitzel, giant pretzels, and more in an Oktoberfest-inspired space. Head to thegamenashville.com/deals to get a $50 gift card for only $25 to Bavarian Beer House while supplies last.
They got to get a new offensive line coach. I think everybody recognizes that. They need to get someone that has proven that they can coach the offensive line and coach them at a high level. Listen, everybody's not going to be an all-pro or pro bowler, even though you would want that. But I want a guy that can take these young individuals and make them better. I can see them getting better. Right now, I can't see, not even Peter Skoronski. He's not getting better. He's sort of leveled off or tapered off just a tad bit. So you have your first rounder that hasn't gotten better. He's not back line, because first and foremost, that's where it starts, because you got to be able to protect your young quarterback. Don't you know he only had less than 2 seconds to throw the ball yesterday? 2 seconds. And not because of design, but because they could not get protection. Aaron Brewer getting pushed back, pushed around, beat on twists. It's ridiculous right now.
That was D-Mace yesterday. So let me get this straight. D-Mace played the game at a high level. I didn't. Vrabel did. D-Mace did. And D-Mace is like, oh my God, this line is terrible. You got to get a new offensive line coach. Vrabel said yesterday, no changes to the coaching staff. Doesn't need to make changes to the coaching staff in the middle of the season. And he knows, because he played the game. I guess Derek doesn't count for his experience having played in the National Football League. Mike Tomlin today made a change. He announced they're firing offensive coordinator Matt Canada. Mike Tomlin's a really good coach. So I laugh when people are like, well, what would changing the coaches right now do? Here's my question. What would not changing some of the assistant coaches right now do to the Titans? Could it make the offensive line any worse? Probably not. Vrabel hired somebody he never should have hired. Somebody with no experience at the NFL level running an offensive line room. He put together a Scarbini group, then asking this guy to coach him. And it is an unmitigated disaster. But can we have a change? Nope, we cannot. And how dare the game. Now, there is one thing I do want to get to on this, on the changing coaches front. I've heard a lot of talk, like on social media and Twitter and things, that are like, oh yeah, Tim Kelly, they got to make a change. When I'm asking Vrabel about changing coaches, I'm not talking about Tim Kelly. Like, I actually think Tim Kelly's doing a pretty good job. Now, I wish he would have called the trick plays that worked. I wish he would have called those when the game was still in the balance and not after the game was out of reach on Sunday. But I really do think Tim Kelly's making chicken salad out there. He screwed some things up so far this year, but nothing too egregious outside of the Cleveland game. I'm talking about the offensive line coach, Howdeling, who, again, might be a nice guy, might be a good coach, but he wasn't qualified. And Vrabel stuck his neck out there for him, and it hasn't worked. So Vrabel's got to admit when he was wrong. Ackerman, the special teams coach, who never gets blamed for anything, and Vrabel yesterday tried to tell us that it was okay that they fumbled because Jacksonville has a great long snapper. And then Shane Bowen I put on the list too. Like, I could be persuaded either way, but I think I probably lean more out than I do in, because when Bowen was running the defense in 2020 without Jim Schwartz, they looked like, an undisciplined, unorganized group. And now this year without Jim Schwartz, they look undisciplined and unorganized, and it's bad. So I wasn't talking about Tim Kelly. And a lot of you were talking about Tim Kelly. I'm not talking about Tim Kelly. The offense stinks, but I don't think it's Tim Kelly's fault. Like, I can watch the game and see the play calls, and I understand what they're trying to do. Defense, they put Amani Hooker manned up with Calvin Ridley down around the goal line. I don't know what you're trying to do there. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, this team is not San Francisco, Jared. Rand's draft from last year still has a lot of potential to be built on this offseason. The NFL's not fair, you're right, but that doesn't mean we should fire a GM a year in, since a successful team now did it 8 years ago. Well, what about Jacksonville? What about Jacksonville 2 years ago? It was a disaster. They didn't have a clue. They fired the guys that didn't have a clue, and they brought in Doug Peterson. Texture says Carthon should absolutely be allowed to get his guy and see his vision through with full control. That wasn't what he signed up for, by the way. It might take a year or two with roster turnover, but the last thing this franchise needs is more inconsistency from the top. Again, stability's good, and I understand that. And I do think that sometimes, stability does give you, there's a positive to the fact that everybody knows what the system's like. When you show up on the first day, it's not really the first day of school. I get that. But not when you're 3-7. Not when you freaking suck. Like, you suck. Like, would stability be good for the Chargers? I mean, you stink. So what's stability going to get you? Hey, Rand's going to come in and draft some more guards over important positions, and the guards might not even be that good. And that's another thing, by the way, that a lot of you have texted in and a lot of people were tweeting last night, which was this idea of, hey, this draft, this 2023 draft was a really good draft. Was it? I'm not saying it's a bad draft, but a really good draft? First of all, it's way too early to be able to tell that. Secondly, when it comes to Skoronski, you heard Derek in the cut right there saying, he's not getting any better. And when I watch Skoronski on the tape, there's some really good plays. And then there's some really bad ones. So I'm not going to assume that Peter Skoronski's going to hit just because I want Peter Skoronski to hit. And I feel the same way about Will Levis today that I felt about Will Levis after the Buccaneers game, after I felt about Will Levis after the Pittsburgh game, after I felt about Will Levis after the Falcons game, the same way I felt about Will Levis after they drafted him, and the same way I felt about Will Levis before they drafted him. I like him. I think he's got potential to be good. But there is a far road from the potential to be good to Dan Marino. And I think he's got that kind of talent. But I thought Vince Young was an otherworld talent. Vince Young could single-handedly win games in the NFL off of his athletic ability alone. And he never was able to cross that bridge. And then with Spears, it's a third down back. He's a fine third down back. So was Dontrell Hilliard last year at the league minimum. I watched Zay Flowers for the Ravens. I hear everybody tell me about how fast Spears is and how elusive he is. Then I see Spears return a kickoff, and he gets tackled at the 19-yard line. Then I watched the Ravens on Thursday Night Football with Zay Flowers. Have you seen this little jitterbug they've got? David, I know you're a Ravens fan. This Zay Flowers is like a video game player out there.
He's legit.
He might be faster than Lamar. He is tiny, and he is just boom, 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 boom. I'm like, that's elusive. Spears is fine. And you guys are telling me, this draft's a great draft. I had somebody tell me Jalen Duncan could be a steal. I'm like, dude, I didn't look at the tape from the Jacksonville game, the tape. And honestly, I don't think I'm going to this week. Jalen Duncan could have played great in that game. I have no idea. All I know is that when Jalen Duncan was drafted, they put up on the board on ESPN or NFL Network that Jalen Duncan led the Big Ten in sacks allowed last year. And that guy's going to be playing tackle for you this week. I hope you're right. I hope all these picks work. I hope this thing explodes. But to sit there and look at this year's class and say, this is a great draft class. Not one guy in this draft class is making the Pro Bowl this year. John Robinson's first draft class, Jack Conklin was an all-pro as a rookie. There's a difference. And I never get too excited about draft classes right after they happen because I did that when I was in the 8th grade. The 2003 Titans drafted Andre Woolfolk in the first round. He looked like he could be a starting corner. They drafted Tyrone Calico in the second round, who for about the first 6 weeks of his career was the man. They drafted Chris Brown in the 3rd round, who was the heir apparent to Eddie George. They drafted the Outland Trophy winner, Ryan Long, in the 4th round. Bust, 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 bust. So I don't get too, I mean, you guys are going crazy about this class. And I'm like, I guess I don't see the same things that you guys do. Texter says Urban Meyer's firing was mainly off the field issues, not on the field. No, it's on the field. When you've got veteran players threatening to mutiny and not play, that is on the field. Like, they already knew about Urban touching the girl's butt. That happened in September. He got fired in November. It was on the field. Remember the game they played here where the Titans didn't even really play well, but the Jags just looked like a corpse of a football team? And Vrabel went to shake Urban's hands or shake hands with Urban, and Urban, like, they didn't look like there was anybody home inside of them. Like, it felt like a body that was just out there walking to Vrabel. That was on the field that stuff happened. So don't tell me Jacksonville was about off. Fired a guy after 1 year. Jack is up next here on our program. Has been waiting patiently. Thank you for calling. What's up, Jack?
Hey, Jared, how many 4th through 7th rounders do you think we have on our team now that are contributing?
4th through 7th rounders that are on the team right now.
And who are contributing, seriously?
I have no idea. I'm sure you've looked it up. Tell me.
Well, I'm going to guess that Phillips might be, and maybe the tight end. I can't think of another one. Can you tell me how many undrafted free agents we have on the team that are contributing?
Aaron Brewer's your starting center. Tier Tart is probably your second best defensive lineman behind Simmons.
D'Amico Autry.
Well, I mean, Autry was a free agent signing. Autry was not a UDFA. Like, I know he was UDFA by the Colts, but you signed him to real money. You don't get credit for that.
No, but the point is there are enough good, really good undrafted free agent prospects out there. Trade all your damn 4th through 7th round picks up to get 2 or 3 second or third rounds. If you can't evaluate talent, at least I got to give talent that you can count on. If you
okay, Jack, thank you for your call. I mean, that's just not a logical. That's just not a logical choice. I hear this all the time, right? Well, I mean, they can't draft anyway, so why draft? I'm like, well, if you look at your team, and I said this when it came to picking a quarterback this year in the draft. People said, well, do you trust this coaching staff to be able to develop a young quarterback? I go, if you own the team and you don't trust your coaching staff to develop a young quarterback, you need to fire your coaching staff. If you own the team and you don't think you can draft in the 4th, 5th, or 7th round, 6th round, whatever it may be, then you need to fire your coaches you need to fire your GM. Like, that's just, I mean, to me, it's that simple. You need to draft well. You need to sign free agents, you need to do it well. You need to make trades, and you need to do it well. Simple. 615-737-1025. Speaking of the later rounds, you have a 5th and a 6th round pick in next year's draft because of somebody I thought wasn't any good anymore, according to you guys. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5-1063 The Game. Be sure to join me, Chris, and D. Mace live out at Teddy's Tavern this Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30 for the pregame show, where we'll break down the Titans and the Panthers. And the award-winning pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment and The Beast Unleashed.
4-0 as the Chiefs head coach against his former team, the Eagles. First down, end zone, picked off, intercepted by Byard. Watson was the target. And welcome into the fold, 30-year-old Kevin Byard. His first as an Eagle to keep this 7-7.
Be able to shut out an offense like the Chiefs is pretty big, man. So this is a huge team win. I think every single week we keep showing how resilient we are.
There you go, KB, Kevin Byard. Now, hold on, wait a minute. I watched Monday Night Football last night. You guys told me that Kevin Byard sucked. You guys told me that he wasn't good anymore. You told me that that's why I should be happy with a 5th and a 6th round pick. That, hey, we need the draft capital. You know, the draft capital that gets you Dennis Daly. We need the draft capital. You told me to be happy with that because Byard wasn't good anymore. I had people I tweeted out on Sunday night during the Sunday night game when Justin Simmons, the star safety of the Broncos, was out there dominating. And I said, well, wait a minute. Why didn't they trade away their star safety for a 5th and a 6th round pick? And somebody tweeted me and said, well, their star safety's still good. So I guess Byard's not good anymore? 8 tackles leading the team, 2 pass defenses leading the team, 1 interception leading the team. Led the Eagles in all of those categories. By the way, he got matched up for most of the night with Travis Kelce. And Travis Kelce had 44 yards. Now, the first Kansas City touchdown was Byard's fault. He clearly didn't know what coverage they were in, and I'm going to assume that that's probably because he's new, more so than it is that Byard was trying to play YOLO ball out there, because I know Kevin Byard's not two things. I know he's not selfish, and I know he's not stupid. So that would be the only explanation for him not knowing the play that they were running. But last night, Kevin Byard was the man for Philadelphia. But Titans Twitter tells me that he sucks. Jared, he's no good anymore. He doesn't intercept the ball anymore for the Titans. Yeah, because the Titans' corners don't cover anybody, and their pass rush doesn't hit the other team's quarterback. That's why Byard doesn't get the ball anymore. Do you remember what happened the other down year Byard had in 2020? The Jim Schwartzless, Shane Bowen year? Byard struggled then too. Guess what? Byard wasn't the problem. Have you ever thought of that? Have you ever thought of the idea that maybe, just maybe, the Eagles don't trade for bad players to stick out there? Have you ever thought maybe the Titans did make another bad trade? And I'm not saying the Titans would have won the Pittsburgh game or the Jacksonville game or the Tampa game with Kevin Byard, but it certainly wouldn't have hurt to have him out there. And I do think that winning just a little bit, even if it means you don't make the playoffs, I think that winning goes a long way for a team with a bunch of young players that you want to develop. So, I mean, you guys can crap on Byard all you want. I'll tell you, he's the same Kevin Byard. He played great last night on Monday Night Football. One texter says, and this has to be sarcasm, after watching play horrible last night, I feel much better about the trade capital we received for him. Yeah, the bag of footballs. Unbelievable. Talking about Byard. Oh, man. Somebody said that he intercepted an underthrown pass. That was a pass that was maybe underthrown by 1 millimeter by Mahomes. And he jumped up in front of it and made the interception. That was a great play by Byard. And I'm not going to hold Byard responsible for the pick play that ended up in a touchdown where they've got to switch off of that, and they didn't. And again, I think part of that is because he's new. I think Byard's great. Chuck wants to know, when did Kevin Byard become Kevin Byard III? I will say that, I don't know about you guys, like, that is throwing me off. Like, I see KB out there. I see 31 on the back of the jersey, But then I see the name is much longer than I'm used to it being, so I'm kind of like, is that Byard? What? And then I see it's Byard the third. I think he was probably always the Byard the third. Texter says, regardless if Byard was still here, he would look lost with this Titans team. There's no way to know that. There's no way to know that he wouldn't have been the one to be able to stop Jaylen Warren on that one run in the Steeler game. There's no way to know that Kevin Byard wouldn't have jumped that throw in the seam for Mike Evans, the one that he carried Christian Fulton into the end zone with. There's no way to know that. I know this. I know Kevin Byard's a good football player, and I know you don't get better by trading away good players. I know the Eagles did not lust after Kevin Byard for the entire offseason after they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and then continued to hawk like vultures when it came to Byard around the trade deadline because he's a bad player. I know that. And I know you don't get better by trading away bad players. Texture says, Byard got completely lost in the touchdown score. He didn't know the play. Like, that's what it was. It wasn't, Byard thought they were in a zone coverage, and it was man for man. So Byard is dropping back in the zone, expecting somebody to pick up the receiver, and they didn't because they were in man-to-man defense. And again, I just chalk that up to him being new because when he was here, I don't think he didn't know the play. So that one doesn't bother me as far as Byard's concerned. The pass interference that they didn't call yesterday on him, where even John Perry, who is so 1 foot in, 1 foot out when it comes to criticizing the officials, that one was not great. That one was not very good. Texture says, Byard was the only good player they had in the defensive backfield, just like AJ was the only good receiver. What an organization we all root for. Boy, there's some truth there. Texture says, KB had a good game, but don't fool yourself. He wasn't matched up with Kelsey 1-for-1. He was in bracket coverage, and I can tell you don't know football. I said he was matched up with Travis Kelsey, and Travis Kelsey had 44 yards. Also, not that it mattered because Kansas City ended up converting on the fourth down. How about that tackle by Byard on the third down that stopped the guy 1 yard short of the sticks? We don't see plays like that around here, do we? We don't see Molden dragging a guy right down 1 yard short of the sticks, the way that Aluakon did with Spears on Sunday. Man, you guys are a tough crowd. You guys are just, Byard's no good. He's not anymore. One texter says, just because Byard had an interception, he's the GOAT all of a sudden. I didn't say that. I say he's a good football player. My favorite thing is that you all thought that he sucked because he doesn't get interceptions anymore. And there he is on Monday Night Football in the game of the season making a crucial interception. 615-737-1025. Also, there's no defense for the perfect pass. So if Mahomes had thrown a perfect ball, it wouldn't have been intercepted. But he made just a little mistake, and Byard took advantage of it. Are your guys doing that? 615-737-1025. Let's get to that Preds win last night. How about them Predators with that come-from-behind victory? And is it a sign of something more to come? Stillman and Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there to tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits tonight for MTSU basketball. The Blue Raiders tip off at UAB tonight at home. Tip-off 6:30, pregame at 6, and the coverage is also available on the 93.3 Classic app and at 93.3classichits.com. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. How about that Preds win last night? The defending Cup champions at home after the win against Chicago. Maybe they get some in the right stretch. You know, maybe they got a bunch of games at home. Last week, I wrote this team off. I said, look, we're going to have to embrace the tough times that are ahead. We're going to see some young guys go through some ups and some downs. We saw Yuso Parsonen get scratched last week. Now we're seeing Luke Evangelista get scratched. Like, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. It should be fun. Okay, these games are going to be competitive, but the idea of the Predators making the playoffs or the Predators exceeding our expectations the way that they did, you know, Laviolette's first year in that 2015 season where they weren't supposed to be very good and all of a sudden they finished second in the division, like all those things. Probably wasn't going to happen this year. And I hated it because I felt like this team has good enough players to be able to compete for a playoff spot. They probably don't have good enough players to be able to do anything in the playoffs. But between what I felt like was kind of a hang-up learning the coach's new system and the goalie not playing very well to start the season, which is traditionally the case for him, it just kind of felt like they had dug themselves too deep of a hole. They went out on that road trip and they got smoked. And then they came home and it was like, okay, now you're at home and you have to make up for the road trip that you put yourselves into to dig yourselves out of the hole. And then you lost to Arizona and Anaheim in heartbreaking, blowing 2-goal lead fashion. And I just kind of thought, well, you are what you are. Chicago came in Saturday, last place team. It was tooth and nail, you versus them. It was a fun game Saturday, though. I went. And I just kind of thought, like, hey, this is going to be a up and down season, but there's probably not going to be like a very exciting type playoff potential towards March. And, you know, maybe they can find a way to get in there and give us a nice little fight for 6 games against somebody. And I had come to terms with that. I had accepted it. I really didn't want it, but I had accepted it, reality, and I had pushed for changes, and I know that in hockey, the only way to get good, for the most part, is to either draft incredibly well, which you had not been doing, or to hit the brakes for a little bit. So I was okay with that. Then last night happened. That was Andrew Burnett hockey. Other than the fact that they gave up the first goal while on the power play. But that was Andrew Burnett hockey. You know, for years, and I felt this way when Laviolette was the coach. And Laviolette was not a very good power play coach. Not the way, I mean, Burnett is a power play savant. And it's taking time. But one of my biggest issues with Laviolette, and especially with Hines, was I always felt like every time the other team would put an extra attacker on the ice, they would have the puck in your end for all 2 minutes and 12 seconds that goalie had hit the bench, and that puck never left that in. I'm like, all you have to do is just get it on the tape, get an open look at the goal, and just fire it in there, and we can all turn around and head up the exits and go home. And they could never, ever do it. The Predators put an extra attacker on the ice, and it always felt like the Predators would immediately give up an empty netter, and that's the ball game. And it's like, what are we doing here? Last night, that extra attacker, 6-on-5, they kept the puck in the Colorado zone. They kept guys in front of the net. They put the puck on Gorgiev, and that was an ugly kind of gritty, grimy goal that led to the game tire. Those are things I'm not used to seeing. And so I see that last night, and I'm like, I think that is Andrew Burnett hockey, where you look like you're organized with a man up, and you cycle the puck around, and you move guys in and out, and you've got traffic in front of the net, and that is what Andrew Burnett, that's why he's so good on the power play as a coach. And it's going to take time. Just like when a new offensive coordinator comes into the NFL, you don't really see the effects until November 1st. That is what we're looking at with Andrew Burnett and the way they played that 6-on-5 last night. And I got hope. Now, I'm still not ready to take back the embrace the tank or think that the hole they dug themselves in the beginning of this month is one that they're going to be able to climb out of, because in order to climb out of this hole, they're going to have to go on a stretch where, they win 6 of 8. Or, they win 5 of 8 and then they have 2 in there that they lose in overtime. Like, that's what's going to have to happen, and I just don't think this team has the talent to be able to do that. But, man, that game, given the team they were playing, and what I thought was great, Bally Sports did they got this new little feature where they tell you the ice time of the guys that are out there. And did you see how long at the end of the game those Colorado players were on the ice for? I mean, we're talking about 1 minute and 40 seconds. Those guys couldn't move. So once you got them out on the ice that long and you just fire the puck on the net, you'll be able to get it back because those guys are kind of stuck in one place anyways. It was great. And they attacked, and they didn't give up. And then, I don't think this is something that we can expect very often or that we can count on, but Cale Makar taking the puck behind the net, and he wipes out, and the puck goes right in front, and Cole Smith puts it right on, and then here comes Trennan, shoots out of nowhere, puts the puck in the back of the net. Willie Donick went crazy on the call on TV. I thought he did an excellent job, with that call, because you could hear the emotion in the building. You could see it on the ice. You could hear it in Willie's voice. That was a great win. That was a great win last night for the Predators. And Andrew Burnett was asked after the game if this could be a measuring stick game, given how good the Avalanche are. And I thought his answer to that was incredibly insightful. Here's what Burnett said after the win last night.
Can it serve as a measuring stick kind of game?
Well, I think I think it's one of those games that you reflect back at the end of the year or in a little while, maybe it catapults you to something, where I don't know if it's a measuring stick, but I think it's, if you can go out and play against them and win against them, I think it's a self-confidence boost, that there's a belief that if we do things the right way, we can play and beat anybody. So a little bit of, you don't say a statement game for us, but a little bit of a game that we can look back to and say, if we do these things, we can play with anybody.
I'm telling you. I think that's the perfect way to articulate how I feel about it, which is, I don't think that this game proves that you're up there with Vegas and Colorado and, the creme de la creme of the NHL. But, and I keep saying defending Cup champions. They were the Cup champions 2 years ago. But I do think it says, hey, when you guys play the right way, you guys can't compete. This team has players to compete. And the way Forsberg is playing right now, I've always said this about Forsberg, that when he gets hot, he's like a guy in a baseball lineup who can carry the lineup. And right now he's hot. 3 weeks ago, we had Barry Trotz on, and we'll have him on at 5 o'clock today too. And we asked Barry about, what's up with Forsberg? He's like, we're really, his shooting percentage is low, but he's got to put that puck in the net. And all of a sudden at the end of that road trip, Forsberg started doing it. And I was discouraged by the fact that they were losing games on a Forsberg heater. But that being said, now he's on the heater, and he is kind of carrying the team, and you're starting to win. It's only 2 in a row. I get it. And it was an improbable comeback. And I'm not shying away from reality. I'm not going to let these 2 games get me into it. Oh, no, everything I said last week about embrace the tank is I don't feel that way. But that was a good win. It was an exciting win. It was a win that gives me hope about this group and this coach and what he's known for, and it gets me excited. 615-737-1025. If you got a thought on the Preds, we'll hit it on the other side. 615-737-1025. Mike Vrabel, by the way, early press conference for him to start the week. Mike Vrabel, 3:30 for his press conference. We'll have that. Will Levis to follow, Stillman and company. Let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. That's right. I love Hiller. I've told you that Hiller has taken care of my home for now 5+ years. We're almost approaching year 6, which is kind of crazy for me. Hiller has a Cash for the Holidays promotion every year, and I absolutely love it, specifically because of what they do for the kids. But they are giving away cash for the holidays with select purchases. Hiller wants to make sure every child experiences the joy of Christmas this year, and they're donating $50 in toys to Toys for Tots with every tankless water heater purchase, and giving away a $250 Visa gift card with each unit. Get a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems, or get a $500 Visa gift card with the purchase of any new whole home generator. And these purchases all have great financing options with low monthly payments. These deals are only available until the end of the year, so schedule today at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face truck today.
Yossi for Forsberg. Yossi cranks one, and that one deflected back to Forsberg on the left wall. 46 seconds remaining. Forsberg gets it in the left circle. Tries to throw it across in front. Septok, and they score! The Predators score to tie it up! That's what desperation can do for you.
It was a sea of gold down there. Turnover after turnover, they forced Colorado into.
So the puck put on the left wing side. Cleared out. McCarr goes back to get it. Fumbles with it. Puts it on the end wall. He wipes out. In front, Cole Smith. That one's stopped. They score! They score! The Predators, they're jumping all over on the ice and on the bench. Incredibly, they have come back to take a 4-3 lead with 21.6 seconds to go.
We've had a few of those going the other way on us. So it was nice to, maybe the hockey gods kind of rewarded us. I think for us, I'm proud of the group. Where we are right now, and you're losing some games, and you're down 3-2 against a really good hockey team. And what I really liked was that we didn't change the way we played, and we had a little bit of a belief that we're going to get some looks, and we stuck to the game plan, and they showed a lot of resilience there down that stretch.
There you go. That was Andrew Burnett after the game yesterday, and you could hear like Pete Weber's like, "Holy crap, they're going to win!" And that was kind of how I felt last night. And so let me just say this. The Predators that have won the last 2 games, that's the Predator team that I thought we were going to see this year. Not the winning, that's not it. But every game being a competitive dogfight, which the Blackhawks game was, and the Blackhawks aren't very good, and the Avalanche game was, and the Avalanche are very good. That's what I thought this season was going to be like. That's why I thought this team could make the playoffs, because, again, if you don't make the playoffs in the NHL or the NBA, you suck. Like that, half the league makes the playoffs. We've seen those first-round NBA contests. It's like, we let the Atlanta Hawks in just because. Now that play-in the NBA, which I think is so stupid, and this in-season tournament, I also think is kind of stupid. But, if you don't make the playoffs in those sports, you're not very good. And so it's like, I figured that with this team, I figured last year they were right on the cut line of the playoffs. Now, they didn't have a very good team, but they also had a great goalie, and I think this great goalie is legit. I know he's a slow starter, and he got off to a slow start this year, and that is a cause of concern. But that between him and Forsberg, Yossi, O'Reilly, McDonough, that veteran crew, and maybe some of these young guys popping, that every game would be competitive, and some you'd come right down to the wire, you'd lose, and some they'd come right down to the wire and you'd win, and then Saros would take enough games that would be able to get you into the playoffs. And I didn't really see that for the first month of the season. I think in large part because Saros wasn't playing very well, and because I think they were adjusting to the newness with Andrew Burnett. Hal came on the show Friday, and Hal said that there was a lot of that. I call it the Sean Payton effect, right? Denver was terrible for the first 2 months. Then finally Payton's getting through to them, and now Denver's not that bad. And so I saw some of that with the Predators. It still is probably a little too late on that because they did dig themselves such a hole. What does Money Puck have them? Let me pull this up. What Money Puck has them at making the playoffs. It's just 2 games, I get it. And then they're going to play tomorrow night against Calgary, and they should win that game. But again, I think it's going to come right down to the wire, just like all the other ones have. 36.3% chance of making the playoffs. Not bad. And St. Louis, who they play on Friday, has a 34% chance of making the playoffs. So maybe there's a shot. But again, what we saw yesterday, and not the win, but just the fact that they, competed the whole game. They didn't let, a bad shorthanded goal get them down. The goalie I thought Saros played really well last night. That is what I was expecting out of this team this year. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. Trey Texan, and he says, I don't mind the Predators losing a lot this year, mainly because I was a huge advocate for the rebuild, and losing is a part of it. But when I see games like last night, it is the only proof I need to see that Barry Trotz has a plan in motion, and at least one team in Nashville has a plan. I don't want to make this sound like a dig at Rand Carthon because we've been talking enough about Rand Carthon. But I do think, and this isn't just Carthon, I think Vrabel's a part of this, and maybe even ownership too when it comes to the Titans. And maybe Vrabel's probably the bigger part of this. Barry tells you what's up. Like, Barry tells you when he does something, Barry tells you why he did it. And you may not agree with him, and I don't agree with Barry on every decision that they make. but at least I understand what he's thinking. He doesn't BS us. Sometimes with the Titans, I feel like they're treating us like we're stupid, right? Like, why'd you take a guard with the 11th overall pick? And it's like, well, you don't understand, and we're not going to tell you why. And then you lose a bunch of games, and it's like, maybe your bull crap doesn't work. If you explained it, then maybe we could figure it out. With Barry, he tells you why Tanner Mullendyke's not coming up, and it makes sense. So I don't want to throw the Titans under the bus because it's not like the Predators are cup contenders here, but I do think that there is something to that. One texter says, Jared's high on the Predators. Here comes the flip-flop. Buy your cup tickets now. Get a seat next to Jared. First of all, Jared already has his tickets. Jared will be sitting in his seats tomorrow night at the game. Let me say this, though. I still think the hole they dug themselves was too deep of a hole. Because they're not going to reel off what I think they're going to need to make up for the road trip they had and the first 2 games of this homestand. Like, I do think that they dug themselves a deep hole and they may not be able to get out of it. Now, this one's a little, I think, maybe off the rocker. Let's be real. We won 2 games without Forsberg. In those, we lose. Duh. No question. But when he goes out with an injury, and he will, the texter says, what happens then? He plays 60 to 65 games a year, whether it's his style of play or he's injury prone, it doesn't matter. Without filling the lineup playing well, where are they? I will burn that bridge when I get to it. About what are they going to do when Forsberg gets hurt? I don't know. Lose? Call somebody up? I don't know. Andy says that the Vrabel press conference is at 3:30 because everybody knows that you'll be on the radio and there's no way you'll ask questions. Here's where I disagree with this, Andy. I think the reason that the press conference is at 3:30 is because the Titans are taking Thursday off for Thanksgiving. And so the Titans are going to have a later practice today since Wednesday would be the day that they normally practice, and they want to make sure their bodies are, in better shape and everything else. So sleep in, come in later on Tuesday because you're going to take off Thursday. You could be right, Andy. It could be about me, but I kind of doubt that. But I do appreciate that. Like, I do appreciate the fact that you're thinking of me. That makes me feel better. All right, Vrabel's press conference coming up, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. 615, we'll break a little bit earlier just so we make sure we get to Vrabel's press conference. 615-737-1025. Let's talk about Twice Daily. That's right, I love Twice Daily. Twice Daily has got the great app. Download the Twice Daily app and join the loyalty program to unlock special discount savings and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily, where you earn points and save money with every visit. And you can get what you crave at Twice Daily. Made to order sandwiches, bakery, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you name it. Fresh items made to go, hot drink, cold drink. Stop by the Beer Cave to unwind with a cold one. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. And if the Titans score in the last 2 minutes of either half, there is a free half sub the next day for all loyalty members through the app. It's in the last 2 minutes of either half. So you kind of got screwed last week when they scored with 4 minutes to go, so there was no sub yesterday. But maybe there'll be a sub after this Panther game next Monday. That's right. But again, you got to download that app in order to do it. Twice daily, fresh, all day. Stillman and Company, Titans with a Tuesday practice, a rare Tuesday practice, pushing things back a little bit. Mike Vrabel at the podium momentarily. We will get live to St. Thomas Sports Park when he gets there. So if you're looking at the stream and you see that I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at the monitor to see when Vrabel gets out there in front of the cameras at the podium, and we'll take his press conference live. Now, somebody texted in the last segment and said, you know that the Titans pushed it back so that you wouldn't be there to ask Vrabel the questions. And, again, I'm flattered that you would think that the Titans would care that much. But they're going to be talking about the Carolina game. I wouldn't have been there today even if it was at 11 o'clock. Because here's Vrabel at the podium.
Is that to build chemistry, communication when you have guys going in and out of the lineup like that?
Well, that's part of it. We know that it's part of this league. That's just kind of what happens throughout the course of the season. Not to say that it's not challenging, but – you know, we've tried to get guys ready to go, tried to ask them to prepare as starters. Even if you look at, Calvin coming from Carolina and just working hard to try to be ready to go whenever his opportunity presents itself. And, the other guys, some of them have been here and waiting for their opportunity. So that's kind of part of the deal. You have to prepare as a starter each and every week.
Where's Duncan maybe made his biggest strides and what maybe is next for him?
Well, I mean, I think we'll, see where he, ends up at the end of the week. He'll be working. Dillard will be, I think, available to practice as he works his way through protocol. And so probably, work Jalen and him over on the left side and work Dylan on the right side, as we start the week off.
For Duncan, what can he build on from Sunday?
Just the experience and, going out and playing and working through, the calls, the silent cadence, the, execution, the plays that he, thought that he did a nice job on, the ones that he, needs to improve on, just little things. There was the screen where unfortunately Peter was downfield early. Jalen was on the backside and, felt like he blocked his guy long enough, but then he ended up being a factor in the play, and just explaining to Jalen that's, sometimes those are long developing plays and every block matters, even though that you did, your job for the majority of the play. It's a good lesson to learn out there and seeing that guys finishing and being involved in the play, and you can help that.
What's the reason for Dylan to the right? Is it more about Andre coming back, or is there something you like matchup-wise there?
Well, I mean, I think that just probably comfort level for Jalen and Dre and Dylan. Being able to work those combinations, and that's kind of how we'll start the week off, and that may change.
Impressions of Bryce Young so far?
I think that the operation has been good. The command of the offense, and you see him changing protection on third down, quick release, the ability to scramble. Doesn't look like it's too big for him. Does a nice job of scanning the field. It doesn't just lock in, on one receiver. It can progress through, even though Thielen's mostly open most of the time, and he has gone to him, but it looks like the different concepts that they try to have up versus different coverages, he's ready to go with.
Mike, it seems like a lifetime ago that you guys last played at Nissan Stadium. How nice is it to be home this week, and how much can it help you?
Well, it's great not to be able to travel, and we have one here, and we got to give our fans something to cheer about. That's, we have to go and play in a manner in which they're excited about and cheer and support us and help us on, third down and a silent cadence and helping with momentum when we have those types of plays.
Beyond just special teams, how's Colton Dow coming along in terms of knowledge of the offense and being ready to go to play?
He's worked extremely hard, and where those opportunities come at receiver, I don't know, but I know that he's gained a lot of confidence in himself and in respect of his teammates for what he did on Sunday just in the kicking game, and blocking on the kickoff return, as we've talked about that's not an easy task. And he went back and set up and blocked a linebacker who was running down the field, and had good. Kicked in the end zone, but he was playing with some speed, and so hopefully that can translate into more confidence and more impact in the kicking game, and then take advantage of the opportunities when they come on offense.
What kind of characteristics you usually face against a Frank Reich coach team?
Well, I think they've always been physical. They like to, which the defense is, and then the ability to run the football, the ability to change pace on offense, the ability to take advantage of the coverage that you're in and try to match up with that, whether that's, zone concepts, spacing, high-low concepts, or the ability to run man beaters.
With Brian Burns, what is it that stands out to you to make him such a good pass rusher?
Well, I think the speed and the length, but also, there's a burst, and sometimes he plays at different speeds and kind of lulls you to sleep and knows that he starts faster than the offensive linemen do. And so there's times where, he'll come in and kind of stop, and, they can see and kind of take a deep breath like, okay, he's done. And then all of a sudden he'll burst, and did that a couple times against Dallas, even on Sunday. So I think that's probably something that he's probably picked up. He can go up and under. He can beat you inside in the middle of the pocket. But then also, if he feels like he's got it on the edge to be able to bend.
Will's completed 50% on first down and 70% on second down. Do you have any feel for why there might be such a discrepancy?
I don't. Should probably throw more on second down based on those numbers. When you pulled those numbers, does that include 2 minute, things of those? Yeah. And so sometimes those numbers get skewed when you look at breakdowns of, the 2 minute at the end of the half, 2 minute at the end of the game. Again, I'm not sure. I know that maybe the pressure forced a throwaway. I know we had one the other day there with Hop, and that there was some leakage, and I don't think he felt like he could get it to Hop, and so kind of dirted it to Derek. That's just an example. Again, I'm just trying to. I think it's all a product of everything in the entire offense, and looking and realizing that it's not all broken. There's some really cool plays in there. There's really positive plays in there, and then just the. What gets overshadowed, I think, even in our minds and everybody's mind is the negative plays, the self-inflicted wounds, the sacks on early downs that lead to longer yardages, which are tough, the snap or the false start or all those things. But then there's plenty of good stuff in there as well. It just unfortunately gets overshadowed. So we'll have to throw it better on first down and maintain that same completion percentage and that same accuracy and that same operation of protection, route craft, and then accuracy to keep it at 70% on second down.
You mentioned Monty Rice yesterday as somebody who's earned more of a role and taken advantage of his defensive snaps in your eyes. What's gone right for him over the course of a season to be able to do that?
Well, it's just been, and continuing to progress, and they have good leadership. Aziz has played a lot of football, and whether that's Aziz or Gibby and Monty, you can only play a certain amount of guys at one time, so we're trying to balance all that as well, I think. And so with Monty, trying to factor in the kicking game and trying to explain to him how critical that is and how he can and help us there. And then, the opportunities that we've given him on defense, he's been able to, be around the football and show up. And, again, not just in the run game. He had a nice play the other day on the boot where, he flipped and ran with Ingram and was able to force an incompletion.
Derek, after the game, talk about how he needs to feel like he needs to do more, maybe run harder, do certain things. I mean, Is he getting room to run when he gets the ball? Is that an area to improve?
Well, I mean, I agree with Derek. I think we all, and I love that attitude. I think the attitude that we all have to do a little bit more, and even Derek, and we have to help him out. We've got to help him out by being able to run more plays, right? We can't give him the ball 10 times and have, it'd be not that he couldn't have an impact, but there's a process to being able to get him those carries that then marinate and mature and, have the ability to bust a few and break some tackles. And we know that there's going to be some, hopefully not too many, some inefficient runs, but we know that over the course of 18 or 20 or 22 carries that hopefully, that we get some of those, that pop. And so there's some room, and then sometimes there's not, based on the front or based on, the coverage or our inability, to get, the defender or somebody falls off. And, so there's been times, where we have, and there's been times where it hasn't. And so when there isn't, they've got to, backs have to be able to put their pads down and push for some dirty yards or, beat somebody on the edge like those guys have done numerous times.
Picking up on that, Mike, you said 18 or 20 or 22 carries. He's averaging under 17
I know.
now. How much of is that a core issue for you guys?
It's about the volume of plays, and however many of those are third down that you take down out of there, and however many are in 2 minute, that you take out of there. So that number gets to be pretty small, and so we know that to get everybody involved, the efficiency has to be there, the drives have to be there, and I'm confident that it will, because I believe that if we are able to do that, then Derek can impact the game, and so can Hop, and Tajay. Tajay's first time he's gotten tackled by the first defender, I would say, all year was on Sunday, and we still like those chances. We're out on the perimeter, but we just have to be able to run, enough plays to get those guys involved.
You mentioned the comfort level at positions with the offensive line. Similar with maybe McCreary, playing outside as opposed to playing inside as he has most of the year.
Roger, he comes to work, he goes inside, he plays outside, he'd play in the kicking game for us. He just, I think he loves football. I think he will do anything that the team needs, and that's what he'll continue to do, I'm sure.
You also mentioned Thielen. How much of a safety valve is he for Bryce?
Always open. I mean, he is great route craft, good feel in zone coverage, and man coverage he uses, whether it's his own receiver or the defender, to run his guy off of the route, and just a lot of really good instincts there for getting open, and rarely drops the football.
Josh has been top 5 in the red zone so far this season. Why do you think that's an area where they've been so impactful?
The Titans defense, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think guys, they credit to the players, for being able to understand that you can't let them run it in and get to force the ball lateral. We saw that a couple times, creep in there when we haven't had success, right? Where it was Pittsburgh and they creased us in the middle. Understanding that not to, all the details that we talk about in the red zone, not backing up and being on top and trying to play square and, trying not to let the quarterback scramble. So all the breakdowns that you see, we've all done those things really well when we're getting stops, like we did on first and second down. They ran the one play with the quarterback read and, Arden and, the corner played it really well, and we stopped them, and then they came back later in the game and ran the same thing, and, Roger got a little bit nosy in there, and, he got the edge. So it's, just being able to execute those details and the stuff that we go over, knowing the coverage concepts that we're in and executing them. But that'll need to continue.
For your corners, when you guys are in man, do they have the green light to come up and press, or
Yeah, we'd like him to mix it up. Yeah, we'd like to mix it up. And again, being smart situationally, right, and being aware of where you're at on the field, where you're at down and distance-wise, situationally, whether it's end of half and they're in field goal range, you may want to protect the end zone as opposed to coming up and pressing, third and longer, and different opportunities. And again, if you're gonna press, we have to make sure that we're impacting, the route and not just giving them free access. And so that's most important, is that when you're going to go up and press, that you're going to impact the release and force him, to be uncomfortable and to disrupt the timing of the route.
For a guy like Fulton that's so comfortable in press coverage, would you like to give him more opportunities to press and get at the line and disrupt?
I want Christian to have whatever opportunities he has that's going to keep him, his man, from catching a football. And I can't say that whatever the numbers are, whether it's press or off, I know that he's been able to execute both of those, and I know that there's been times where guys have caught it in press or off. So I think being able to mix it up, I think that's important as well. I don't know that, one's statistically better than the other. And then, there'll be some coverages. Again, in man coverage, it is what it is. And you can't have everybody pressed, right, and making sure that we don't get picked. There are some opportunities there when guys are close together. So, that's kind of where we're at there.
If they mix it up to your satisfaction?
No, Traylon won't be there. I'm sorry?
If they mix it up to your satisfaction?
No, we need to be better in all levels of our pass defense. And I'm hopeful that when I say all levels, I mean up front, that we get there a half step sooner, and in the back end, and that we're either hitting guys to help the quarterback hold it a half a second longer. That's what I talk about, impacting the quarterback in the passing game, and talk to the players about that. It's not just one group. Like, there's times where we've had good coverage and forced them to hold on to the football. There's times where we've gotten there and have not, forced them to hold the football. And so just realizing and showing where we can put those things together just a little bit better, and that hopefully will lead to, ball disruption, whether it's a tip pass, or a sack, or a strip sack, or an interception because the quarterback's throwing it too soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
That was Mike Vrabel at the podium with the Titans. Will Levis, Titans quarterbacks, up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Titans quarterback Will Levis at the podium.
Yeah, I mean, there's the feel of, the rush, but then there's the feel of the back end, and, compartmentalizing the two and understanding how one could potentially affect you, but not letting the other one affect you at the same time, But it's just a feel thing. It's just with reps knowing how when you get pushed off your spot, how your eyes can't necessarily go to that next read, how you have to move to this side of the field or find whatever route's coming to you. That's just, knowing the playbook, knowing the scheme, knowing where your guys are going to be at certain times, and then if you have an understanding of what's happening in the back end, where those holes are supposed to be, and then reacting to that.
How more of a feel have you gotten over the last month?
I've definitely improved. I think just in terms of coverage recognition and just not just guessing and having a good idea of what I'm seeing out there. I think I've done a decent job of that. I just got to keep pushing and get better.
How's that process been? Just, beginning of the week, you sit down with Tim Kelly and Charles London, what's going to be up, what's going to be down. How's that process going for you?
It's been great. I mean, they get us ready each and every week with all the looks that we could potentially expect, and then obviously telling us that, we're going to get some looks that we don't expect. I mean, you can go back to last week to talk about their technique in the secondary and how we expected them to be handling all these, deep 3-level concepts that we work a lot, and we didn't get the responses that we had expected. So it's that much more important that we're able to make those in-game adjustments, and that these receivers and everybody else knows their rules and what we might be expecting, but how we have to just turn on a dime and just react to what actually happens opposed to what we're expecting.
How do you think you've done with that stuff, the unexpected stuff?
Sorry?
How do you think you've done with that unexpected stuff?
Good. I mean, I even with last week, like just that second deep shot that we were able to take, like the guys were in the spots that we were expecting them to be, and because of that, we were able to make a play. So just guys continuing to do that. Obviously, it's not perfect, and just with technique and how we're teaching them to do these things, it's important to, again, compartmentalize like what we're teaching, what we're expecting, but what needs to be done to get the point of the play through.
In terms of that, as the rate that people are blitzing you, has that been about what you've expected, or has it been a little more than when sitting extra guys?
Yeah, I think we go back to that second game that I played, just seeing a little more pressure and teams kind of realizing that they were able to get to us a little bit, and then we've seen a little uptick in that and just the pressure percentage. These teams, they are what they are at their core, but if they do see things like that, then they might change their tendencies, which we've been able to get ahead of and at least prepare for, which has been nice. But we've done a good job of having the right answers in protection, and especially in third down, with just ways that we're able to handle and just take as much pressure off the quarterback position.
How closely did you get to know Carolina's staff in the pre-draft back in the spring?
Pretty close, yeah. I mean, I had a dinner with them, and then I had a top 30 visit with them, and just had a decent connection with them. I know that they did the same process with the 3 or 4 quarterbacks or whoever they brought in, but they were very professional about all of them, and I thought that they were a well-run organization.
Is there a point where you thought you might be the pick there? Just kind of how did you think about this week?
Not really, no. I think I went out there for my top 30, and not that they said it in words, but essentially the vibe was, hey, like, thanks for coming, but But and then I think it was like two days later, like the reports come out like Will Levis reportedly supposed to be #1 pick to Carolina. I really wanted to just stand up on top and be like, they actually told me the opposite. But no, I mean, all respect to Coach Reich and all of them. They handled that process with all the integrity and all the right ways that they should have. And looking forward to competing against them.
You motivated by teams that maybe didn't pick you? I know a lot of times the guys get motivated by this team didn't pick me, this team didn't pick me. There were some quarterbacks picked ahead of you. Does that serve as motivation, or you just kind of go about doing it?
Yeah, I don't think I'm looking at a specific team like, dang, like screw these guys. Like I'm really trying to beat up on them, But no, it's just internal motivation, just as a whole. Just how that whole process went for me, that was able to just push me forward and just work the way I have like since I got here.
Well, what have you seen from their defense, and in particular Burns? How aware do you have to be?
Yeah, he's a beast. I mean, we talk about him. We don't necessarily know what he's going to do technique-wise from his different positions. So just being, locked into, he might be here, but you might expect him to be doing this, where he might be coming underneath, and he's definitely a guy we got to lock in on. And I think overall defensively, we're going to be getting some looks that we haven't gotten in a long time from a front perspective, which is nice that we were able to get ahead of it, knowing that we were going to be facing these types of teams. So a lot of stuff that we'd already worked in training camp that we haven't necessarily been able to come back to, that we now just kind of got to refresh our memory with and get the guys tuned up on. So opportunities to do a lot of good things against them. Got to handle their guys, Burns especially being one of them.
A lot of quick conversations post game. Anybody say anything with Baker or Trevor? Anybody you talk to, giving you advice, kind of going off about how things have gone? So
I think the quarterback wise has just been really quick in and out with them, but I've had good conversations with dudes that I've played with on other teams in college that obviously they're going to tell me what I want to hear, being their friend, telling me that I'm doing a good job. But it's cool hearing just other guys, other professionals, giving you some affirmation about how you play or whatever. Not that means anything because it all just comes from within and the guys in here. But it's just cool seeing the dudes that you're able to come up with through college to go and chase their same dreams and then laugh with each other afterwards. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Will.
There you go, Will Levis, Titans quarterback at the podium. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. Coming up next, by the way, boy, I made some people mad, including Joe Rexrode. And yet there's one sentiment that I guess I don't share with, I think, the majority of Titan fans. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. Trevor Maddich in 30 minutes. Barry Trotz, after that great Predators win yesterday, Barry Trotz in 1 hour at 5 o'clock. So yesterday I made a lot of people mad when I said if I owned the Titans, the way things are trending right now, at the end of the year, I would be prepared to clean house and start over. I know the Titans are at the bottom of the league. It hurts my heart to admit it, but it is reality. You're one of the worst teams in the league. I think we can all agree on that. David's in for Ian. David, would you agree with that?
Yes.
It hurts my heart. We'll find out Sunday if you're the worst team in the league or not. And I hate that, but I don't want to be the worst team in the league anymore, and I don't think you guys want that either, and I just don't trust what I call the commission. And so instead of, well, last year we blamed Robinson. This year we'll blame Vrabel. So now let's send Rand Carthon out there with $100 million and with the 4th overall pick in the draft, and let's send him out there. I just rather start from scratch. At least that's the way it's trending. And again, if I owned the team, they wouldn't know this. Like Vrabel would have just done the press conference 30 minutes ago the way Vrabel did it. And Vrabel would coach this Sunday, and Vrabel would continue to coach and everything else. But then at the end of the year, we'd be moving on. Same with the GM. And everybody says, well, that's not fair to Rand Carthon, which I agree. But why do I owe Rand Carthon the benefit of the doubt? I don't think I owe Rand Carthon anything. I think he owes us good players, right? And so far, he has not delivered. And so when people tell me that 1 year in is too soon, and I think for drafting purposes, I absolutely think 1 year is too soon. Like, I'm not even completely sold that C.J. Stroud is the next dude, though it is trending in that direction. But this commission that Rand Carthon signed on to be a part of with Mike Vrabel is not doing a good job. They inherited a 7-win football team, and now they're at the bottom of the league. And he's culpable to some extent because he signed up for this, even if Vrabel is at fault. So I did what a lot of people I think would do, right? I took a pros list and a cons list. So, and again, let's talk about, again, the commission. Vrabel and Carthon, because I don't know who's responsible for what, and neither do you, and they're never going to tell us. So they're both equally as guilty. Here are the pros in their 9 months, 10 months on the job. DeAndre Hopkins is the first pro. Now, they lucked into DeAndre, but they did get him, and DeAndre is still good, and so that's good. Nick Folk. And I was against Nick Folk. But other than that missed kick at Tampa Bay, so far so good. I trust the kicker. It's the least of my concerns right now. So far, I think he's done a good job. Those are the pros I have. DeAndre Hopkins and Nick Folk. Cons. Number 1, and this is in order of how bad or incompetent I think some of this stuff is. Number 1, draft night. Letting the cat out of the bag on the quarterback. It is well documented the Texans were prepared to take Will Anderson Jr. with the 2nd overall pick. They were then going to try to trade back with Seattle at 5 to take C.J. Stroud until they found out, because your commission couldn't zip it, that you wanted C.J. Stroud. They knew and they changed their minds. This is what Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports said after the draft on Robbie and Joe.
I'll tell you this, the Texans knew. The Texans knew who they were competing with. The Texans knew what player, or at least they felt like they had a handle on what player that the Titans were coming up to get. The ideology between what player you selected first was based on who Arizona wanted. They knew Arizona had a super high grade on Will Anderson, so if they passed Will Anderson at 2 and Arizona decides, we don't like either offer, now we're taking your guy. They figured that's less likely to happen if we just take Stroud off the board at 2.
So he's telling you they knew. So somehow, some way, you let the cat out of the bag. Your commission, Vrabel or Carthon, you screwed up, and you don't have C.J. Stroud because of it. That is a massive screw up. That is a get you fired that day level screw up. That's the first one. The second one, Drafting a guard before the franchise quarterback. I will never understand this, ever, right? Bruce Matthews was in the 1983 draft and the Titans took him. And Bruce Matthews had a Hall of Fame career. And right now, Peter Skoronski does not look like a Hall of Famer, but it's early. But if the Oilers knew in 83 that Dan Marino was going to be Dan Marino, then you draft him, wouldn't you? And to me, that just screams of incompetence, right? Nobody has ever explained this to me in a way that makes sense. Guard is not a very valuable position. If we had to go through the NFL and say, okay, what are the most valuable positions? Quarterback is number one, left tackle, pass rusher, corner, receiver. Those are the premium positions. It's great to have Rob Gronkowski, but again, it's not as important as having a left tackle or having a game-changing pass rusher like Bruce Smith. So then, you get your second group and your third group and everything else. Guard is towards the bottom. Guard is down there with safety. The only thing ahead of guard are kicker and punter. Or I guess behind guard are kicker and punter. So the way that all played out, where they let every team in the league get a crack at their franchise quarterback so they could draft a guard, doesn't make any sense to me. It screams incompetence, and that scares me. Another con, the 2023 free agent class. You know you have to rebuild your offensive line, and the answer? Andre Dillard for $10 million, Aaron Brewer at $4.3 million, and more on him in a second, and Daniel Brunskill at $2.58 million. Both Dillard and Brewer are overpaid, and the Titans also had the 32nd pass defense in the league and only signed Sean Murphy-Bunting, and they didn't draft anybody. By the way, they also got rid of Kevin Byard, who was their best defensive back. So the Titans knew what their issues were, and their answer was Andre Dillard, Aaron Brewer, Daniel Brunskill, and Sean Murphy-Bunting. That ain't good enough. Speaking of Aaron Brewer, a second-round tender for Aaron Brewer is a 2023 RFA at $4.3 million. Now, the Titans gave out two of these. They also gave out a $4.3 million second-round tender to Tier Tart, and I understand that because somebody might have offered Tart a contract. Tart's actually a good player. Aaron Brewer is an undersized guard, okay? Let's just call it what it is. He would have never commanded a multi-year deal on the open market, and he certainly would not have been offered more than the $2.6 million right of first refusal tender that could have been placed on him. So even if you defend bringing Aaron Brewer back and making him the center, and you play that card of they didn't have a lot of money in free agency, they just lit $1.7 million on fire right there. And also, just so that we're all clear, Brewer stinks. Like, I know Vrabel came out yesterday and said Brewer's doing a good job. He's not. He's not very good. So I'd put that on the cons list. The Kevin Byard pay cut, just the entire thing, was a total screw-up. How did Mike Lombardi catch wind that they asked him to take a pay cut? Then after I did my digging, I was told Byard refused it and had requested a release. And if he couldn't get guaranteed, because he couldn't get guaranteed money in 2024. I had that story, just like I had John Robinson getting fired. I asked Rand Carthon to call me, in which he could have clarified the report and not have it blown up the way that he did. And he didn't. He didn't take 5 minutes out of his day. And that is something that they've had to deal with the entire offseason. And Floyd used to always tell me, when it came to his relationship with the media when he was the GM, he used to always tell me that he would tell the local press, talk to me before whatever. Sometimes I can't tell you, but talk to me, and I'll tell you what I can tell you so that you don't cause a problem for me and you don't cause a problem for you. And I have always taken that advice when it comes to my dealings with the Titans, Predators, whatever it may be. But Rand just didn't feel the need to pick up the phone. And let me state this when it comes to the whole Byard, what did he really want? What didn't he want? What did he say? What did he not say? I do not regret anything about what I did in terms of that Byard press conference thing or Byard pay cut thing. But Rand had to deal with it now the entire off season because he couldn't take 5 minutes out of his day. Then there's the Kevin Byard trade. A 5th and a 6th round pick. Boy, I tell you, Byard really looked past his prime last night with that interception and 2 pass breakups and the 8 team leading tackles and guarding Travis Kelce. I view that as a con. Then what I thought was a rookie mistake by the Titans. And again, this could be Carthon, this could be Vrabel. It's the commission. Shopping Derrick Henry in the offseason was a rookie mistake. They went to the combine trying to see what Derrick Henry was worth. And it blew up when it got out. And it got out because another team that the Titans had approached about trading Derrick Henry went to Mike Silver and trying to trade information, which is part of how all this works, and said, I hear Tennessee's trying to trade Derrick Henry. And that got out. You're lucky Derrick Henry doesn't take things personally, but not everybody's going to act like that. And let me just ask you this question, because Kaharski said to me, they were just trying to gauge his value. Right. And if I told my girlfriend, hey, I'm going to just go see what my value is on the open market, I'm not sure that'd go over very well, would it? And so that was a huge mistake. It was embarrassing that happened. And then I also think not talking Rand Carthon, not talking to the media post-Byard when they trade him, and while the team is falling apart, and Vrabel just gets up there at the podium and gets murdered day after day after day with these questions, I think shows a serious lack of leadership. And so it's not personal when it comes to how I feel about Rand Carthon or the Titans. It really is not. I mean, sometimes I think you guys give me too much credit. Like, I think you think there's more there when it comes to why I feel the way I feel. All I want is for the Titans to be good. That's all I care about. But when I see the only 2 good things you did was lucking into DeAndre Hopkins and trading for a kicker, and then all the bad in the last year, why with the resources that you should have this offseason would you not clean house? And that's where I sit. And if I owned the team, that's why I don't want to deal with any of this stuff anymore. I don't want my star players to hear that they're on the trade block. I don't want the teams in the draft to know who we're going to take so that they can then change their plans. So to me, that's enough screwing up. But I don't know, I guess I'm a bad guy because of it. 615-737-1025. We're to your phones next. Trevor later this hour, Stillman and Company, 10251-1063 the game. And then let me tell all the fine folks out there, while I have your wonderful attention. And, by the way, Barry Trotz at 5 o'clock. Let me tell all the fine folks out there that tomorrow is your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the Preds game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Joe tomorrow morning at 8:45. Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with my agent, TJ Anderson, to get your home seen, heard, and sold.
yesterday was a travel day for me, so I was not able to listen to Jared. How about you? Any other greatest hits from Jared yesterday?
Well, I was at Bridgestone when he started talking about this, but the gist of this, from what I gathered, is that if he were the owner, if he were in charge of the Titans, he would be prepared to clean house at the end of the year. He's not making any in-season firings, but he would be prepared to clean house. And he said that means the coaching staff and the general manager at the end of the year, is what he said.
Jared had a pretty, I think, effective and dead-on rant or series of rants last year that I agreed with, which was, see, that's what loser franchises do. When he was talking about the John Robinson in-season firing, do you know what loser franchises would do? They'd hire a GM and then fire him after a freaking year when he inherited half of a tire fire. That is so stupid. Like, if they actually would consider that, and I'm talking they being Amy, her, she has no clue what's going on. This franchise is screwed.
No, let me tell you what would be stupid, and like last year, would be firing them today. That's the difference. I'm saying at the end of the year, this team would be the worst team in the league probably. Somebody texted in and said, hey, this is not fair to Rand Carthon. Give Rand Carthon the chance to hire his coach. Give him the chance to spend your $100 million into draft and then see what happens. Why? Why would I do that? Why do I have to do that? Again, this is a guy that on draft night, whatever, whether it's Vrabel's fault or his fault, on draft night, they blew it on C.J. Stroud. They thought Aaron Brewer was going to get a contract in free agency, so they gave him a second-round tender, and he can't even freaking snap. So I'm going to let him hire a coach, and I'm going to let him spend $100 million. Oh, great. And then next year when you suck, it'll be like, well, we can't fire the coach because he's in his first year too. No, I'm wiping the slate clean. Adam's in Portland's up next. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, dude. So we were far apart on Tannehill, and we've pretty much been in lockstep on Vrabel. But actually, I thought for a lot longer that Vrabel was a fraud, and I've said that out loud. But giving up on Ram, I think, is the dumbest thing ever. After
Why?
1 year, he's brand. Just give me a second. He's brand new. Any of these morons who expect him to be elite after 1 year is dumb.
I'm not expecting him to be elite, Adam. I'm expecting him to not let the cat out of the bag at the draft of who they're going to take. I'm expecting them to pay appropriately for Aaron Brewer. I'm expecting them to get better tackles than Andre Dillard.
Bro, you scream for 4 hours a day. Just give me one take. So Peter Scarante, you were like, he's a below-average guard. He's brand new. Number one, he come out as a tackle, but he's not below average. He's a rookie, man. He's playing in the wrong position. That is not Rand Carthon's fault.
Yes, it is.
Listen, he's the tackle everybody wanted. They're just because they're not playing in the right spots, not his fault. Levis, I think, is the right quarterback. Instead of trading away all those picks that you're talking, they bobbled Stroud. No, we would. Can you imagine not having first-round picks for the next 2 years for that quarterback? Number one, you're going to get Stroud would not be that good here.
Adam, you're talking and I've seen this a lot over, and I appreciate it, call. I've seen this a lot over the last couple of days, where Titan fans, and I think this is more of like a fringe Titan Twitter thing, like the base of Titan Twitter, the Titan fan, the base, that believes what they want to believe and not what is in front of them, right? When the Titans wanted Rand Carthon, somebody accused me yesterday of saying, you didn't like Rand Carthon from the start. That's not true. We had Rand Carthon on the show the day he got hired. I liked him. My opening take was from his press conference. Doesn't really tell me anything about football, but I like him. Like, he seems like he's got a good personality. But what's right in front of me is incompetence. And it's like the Skoronski thing. You guys keep telling me, well, Skoronski's going to be good. That's great, but he's not good right now. Normally, when you draft a guard 11th overall, now all I know is I worked with Floyd Reese for 5 years, and as you guys know, I soaked up everything that he said like a sponge. And he told me, if you draft a guard in the top 10, and 11 is close enough, if you draft a guard in the top 10, he better be going to Hawaii every year and right to the Hall of Fame. Skoronski's not going to the Pro Bowl, folks. And you're trying to tell me that, well, it's not Rand Carthon's fault. They're playing him in the wrong position. Yes, it is. He's the general manager. When you draft a guy, you're going to say, hey, what position are we going to play? I don't know. Safety? Inside backer? Running back? I don't know. This isn't college where you just recruit athletes and then turn them into a position. Like, he was a part of this commission. They decided they were going to draft Skoronski at 11. They were going to put him at guard. And again, Skoronski is not good right now. I don't know what you guys need to see or what you need to hear to believe it, but you don't want to believe it. You want to believe that, the draft's going to be, all these guys are going to be stars, and that it's like Adam sitting there telling me that, like, well, I'm glad that they screwed up the Stroud thing. Okay, well, that's still not good management. Regardless of whether or not you got the result you wanted, the way you got it was by incompetence, if that's what you wanted. And that's not what they wanted. And I would guarantee you talk to 99% of football people out there, they would tell you they'd rather have Stroud than Levis. I'm fine with how it shook out, but I'm not fine with the process it took to get there. James is up next here on Stillman & Company. What's up, James?
What's up, man? Hey, man, you've been telling us all along that Vrabel was in charge. And you also been telling us that Diana Rossini is Vrabel's go-to in the media.
I think so.
How do you know it wasn't gamesmanship on that part? That's the first point. Secondly,
well, do you want my answer to that, or are you going to make the second point first?
No, because you don't know.
How do I know it wasn't gamesmanship?
Yes.
I mean, you think the Titans are so smart that they played the Texans into taking the guy that everybody across the country thinks is the next franchise quarterback. Boy, you really smoked him, James.
So you think Vrabel is so dumb?
Yes, I think they screwed up.
On draft night.
I think they are incompetent. Yes.
They are. But I thought Vrabel was in charge.
I have said from the jump that I believe that it is a true collaboration which is never going to work, but that it is, and I appreciate your call, James, but I am of the belief that, again, they promised the owner, we'll work it out, we promise, and that's how you end up with a guard in the first round. But this idea of like, no, that was gamesmanship that landed Stroud with the Texans. One, I don't believe that, and two, if it did, and he ends up getting MVP votes, boy, you guys are smart. Trevor will join us coming up next. We'll get Trevor's reaction on what he sees out of how bad it is with the Titans. And Jalen Duncan's going to get a crack, it looks like, in this lineup. What's he think about the offensive line and some theories I've got? We'll do that next here on Stillman & Company. Let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical and how those guys take great care of my home. Hiller's Cash for the Holidays promotion is back. They're giving away cash for the holidays with select purchases. Hiller wants to make sure every child experiences the joy of Christmas this year, so they're donating $50 in Toys for Tots with every tankless water heater purchase, and giving away a $250 Visa gift card with each unit. Get a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems, or get a $500 Visa gift card with the purchase of any new whole home generator. And these purchases all have great financing options with low monthly payments. These deals are only available until the end of the year, so schedule today at happyhiller.com. Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters, in Twin Peaks, home of 29-degree drafts and wall-to-wall sports. Trevor, let's get right into it. Did you ever expect the Titans to be this bad, and what do you make of it?
Seem to be declining, the secondary and the offensive line, and it's hard to look at them and see that there's hope.
Yeah. Let's start with the offensive line. What is the problem with the offensive line, Trevor? I mean, if I were to say, what is the main issue? Is it a technique thing? Is it just a raw talent thing? Is it because I'm convinced that the Titans made two huge mistakes. One, they didn't spend enough money on the offensive line in the offseason. The money they did spend on guys like Dillard and Brewer is not enough. And two, they hired their third assistant last year. They made him the line coach. He's got no experience at the NFL level of running an offensive line room until this year. And I think that that's a huge mark against Vrabel and the way he handles the coaching staff. So what do you see when you look at the offensive line?
To start with, what you just said, Jared, I think is astute. When you watch them play, they don't seem to know how to pick up a stunt. I mean, my notes as I watched the game, they're littered with things like twist left not picked up, twist right not picked up, twist in the middle, too much penetration by the drive man. And it just seems that when defenses move, the offensive linemen don't move with them and stay in front of them. You can coach up offensive linemen that are not supremely talented but are willing to work hard. And I think these guys are willing to work hard. You can see them try. You can coach them up to have really good technique, even if they're not really talented. And that will force the defense to at least defeat the guy in front of them instead of not having a guy in front of them at all, or maybe a half a guy in front of them, and the gap is exposed. So I don't think they're getting the most out of the offensive line as they could. Part of it is injuries. I mean, by the time this game rolled into the fourth quarter, they had their third option at left tackle. They had their fourth preference at right tackle, who is a rookie, Jalen Duncan, right? And and they're running out of people on the edges, even though they never had really great people on the edges to begin with. So we have to give them a little grace for that. And then kind of the last thing is that finally now they're trying to get them some help. The Titans are keeping in tight ends and or running backs on both sides to help the tackles a little bit before they might leak out. They're calling really quick passes, which puts a lot of pressure on Will Levis because he doesn't have the ability to stretch the field downfield very much. He does a little bit sometimes, but overall he's just throwing short and the defense is up to stop the short passes. You put all those things together and the offense doesn't really have much of a chance because the offensive line, through a combination of injury and I think, not getting the most out of their talent, is overwhelmed in games. They've tried to fix the offensive line. I respect that they haven't gone out and way overspent for people. I mean, they probably overspent for Dillard. You've mentioned that, and I think you're right. But they could have gone out in free agency and say, we need an offensive lineman, and there's a guy out there, and they just break the bank for the guy, even though he's not worth that much money. They're better off eating, a season like this and getting the right guy in for the long term than to get themselves stuck with a guy that can't play, but they overpaid him. So these things they're all problems that all add up to a perfect storm of an offensive line that just, bottom line, can't contribute to wins.
How would you evaluate Peter Skoronski?
He's regressing. I thought he was better earlier in the season, and he got hurt, missed a few games, and since he came back, he's struggling. Now, it's hard when you've got a center to your right, which Skoronski does from left guard, who gives up too much penetration. And when you've got a revolving door of people that really aren't NFL starters at left tackle, that makes it harder on him. But there are plenty of times when he doesn't pick up his part of the stunt. There was a 3rd and 7 in the what quarter was it? It was late in the second quarter, about 2 minutes to go. They ran a twist to the left, and the left tackle, Dylan Radin, he slipped. but it wouldn't have mattered because Skoronski had the drive man come through his left shoulder through the B gap on just to his outside. He's supposed to stop that guy in time for the left tackle to slide over and pick him up. But the left tackle slipped and fell. But even if he hadn't have slipped and fallen, Skoronski allowed that guy to get tremendous penetration. The stunt would not have been picked up anyway, and both of those guys ended up hitting the quarterback. And so that was a pass to Chig. He had to throw it short, and Chig didn't get the first down. And so Skoronski, as I see him post-injury coming back, he's not performing to the level that I thought he would, even though in some ways he's dependent on the guy to either side. He still is not helping either one of those guys like he should.
Trevor, why can Aaron Brewer not snap the ball?
Because he's too small. And he has to rely on quickness and leverage and angles to be able to block guys that outweigh him by 40 pounds, 50 pounds, and it's almost all muscle, right? And sinew and bone. And so as a center, when you snap that ball, you've got to get it out of your hands before you turn too much. You also have to have real finesse. Well, let's stop there. Because if you're, say, going to the right, and if you turn your body as you're stepping to the right too soon, you can step to the right, but if you step and turn, that ball will go off to the quarterback's left. So you're a little bit restricted with your first step. And because he needs to get over there quickly because he doesn't have the size to compensate for not being in a perfect position when they make contact, sometimes he'll turn too quickly. The second thing is, as a center in a shotgun snap, your arm has to be kind of disconnected from everything else in your body because your mind, your heart, your everything else in your body is wanting to fire off or to set up and, punch a pass rusher. And he's had problems, like especially on the run with high snaps and with bad snaps. And so there was one in particular where the ball was way up high and it ended up being a fumble. It was supposed to be a running play. There were a couple of them like that. Mm-hmm. And when you're not big enough to have a fair fight with the guy in front of you or the guy just to your right or left, what you end up doing is you're firing off at a higher percentage of your theoretical max. But while you're doing that, your arm has to be going at 40%. And so you end up sometimes snapping the ball too hard because all the rest of you is going super hard. And in doing so, that ball will sail or it'll go too fast. And it's all a matter of not being able to disconnect the effort and vigor in your snapping arm from the effort and vigor in the entire rest of your body. If he were 310 pounds, he'd be able to slow down just a little bit everywhere else and be fine. But because he's 270, at least that's what he's listed, he has to get there right now, super hard, 100% of his theoretical max. And sometimes he'll snap that ball way too hard because his right arm is doing the same thing that the rest of his body's doing.
Trevor, I asked Vrabel yesterday about, he made a comment after the game that they were snapping 50 balls a day at practice. Now they'll snap 100 balls so that Brewer can get it right. And I asked him, as opposed to just snapping more footballs, at what point does he make the decision to take him out, right? And Vrabel said that basically implied he wouldn't do it because Brewer is too good of a player. Are we watching the same games?
No, I think it's relative. He's too good of a player compared to what? Right now, Corey Levin is the listed as the backup center. And I actually thought when he played last year, I thought Corey Levin played pretty well. He's a bigger guy. He's 307 pounds. And I don't know that it wouldn't be such a bad idea to put him in, but they see these guys practice every day. And so in some ways we have to defer to that. But it's not that Brewer is so great. It's that they trust him more than they trust anybody else that they could put in there. But I would say this, that practicing snaps is mildly interesting. Practicing snap and stepping left and right is kind of half useless. What you have to do is get a practice squad linebacker out there or a fast practice squad defensive lineman. I say linebacker because they're even faster. And put them into the gap to the right, put them to the gap to the left, and have them fly up the field as fast as they can go on every one of the shotgun snaps that Brewer takes in practice to get those extra snaps. And he's got to get in front of those guys and block them as 100% live rep every single time, or else he's just wasting his time. Because it's not a matter of not being able to snap the ball. It's a matter of snapping it too hard when he is under too much pressure to get to that 100% theoretical max of his body requires. So it'll be interesting when you've got your guys out there, Jared, or if you go to practice, when he's taking those extra snaps, I want to see if he's got those practice squad guys that are flying up the field. I don't mean just there posting up. I mean they're trying to beat him as if their career depends on it. And I would just say this, that as a long snapper, I used to snap punts without looking back at the punter at all. And so I would block as if I never snapped. Opposing punt rush teams thought I couldn't get away with it. So they would try to beat us where I was all the time, and they never could. As a matter of fact, there's some fun stories to tell there. But every day in practice, after practice, I would have a practice squad guy get out there and try to beat me as if he did, he would be elevated to the regular roster and be on the punt block team. I told him that. I said, you go get that guy. And I had to snap it and go block him, even though there was nobody else around. That's what what Aaron Brewer needs to do. And if he doesn't, he's wasting everybody's time.
Last one for you on the Titans. Is it possible to truly evaluate Will Levis with what he's dealing with right now?
Yeah, you can evaluate how he does under pressure. I mean, I think I'm actually really impressed with the guy. You know, at one point in the second half on those 2 touchdown drives, I think he completed 10 passes in a row. He was having to find receivers short when the defense knew he was trying to do it. He had a couple of long passes. One was on a trick play, so that kind of fooled the defense. But at the same time, I see him standing up, making decisions under pressure. When he gets hit, he gets back up and he continues to problem solve. Now, the answer to the problem isn't always as good as it ought to be, but he's continuing to problem solve. And frankly, in this game, he completed passes at a much higher rate than I thought he would. He was 13 of 17, for goodness sake, against the Jaguars, while, he had all kinds of things breaking down around him.
Trevor Madison with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics in Twin Peaks. We got some college football to get into with Trevor. We got some more Michigan. We've also got playoff scenarios, and one that is starting to creep into my brain and is near and dear to me. We'll get to that with Trevor coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Saturday was a beautiful day for the Louisville Cardinals as they were able to clinch their first ever spot in the ACC Championship. I was at Bridgestone Arena at the Predators game watching Louisville on my phone. It was wonderful against Miami. Trevor Maddich is with us. And after that, I started thinking, Trevor, and I hate to say this because I never really thought they could beat Florida State, but with Jordan Travis breaking his ankle and being out for the year, that maybe opens the door there. I think there's a chance we could make it to the college football playoff if we beat Kentucky this week and then beat Florida State in the ACC championship game, which takes me to this, which is I think Georgia is in. I think the winner of Michigan and Ohio State is in. And then I think the winner of the Pac-12 is in. If Texas loses and Alabama doesn't beat Georgia in the SEC championship, is there a chance for Louisville to get into the playoff, Trevor?
Under those circumstances, yeah, there's a chance.
Oh, yes.
There is a chance. The problem that you'll end up with, and that because they're sitting there right now at number 9, if they beat Florida State, they'll move up to at least 8. You said if Georgia beats Alabama, so then they move up to 7 because Alabama's right ahead of them.
Sure.
If Texas loses, then they move up to 6. See, if all that stuff happens, Georgia will pick, or Oregon will pick up their second loss if Washington wins out, and that's one of the things that Louisville would need. So Louisville fans need to be Washington fans. But the real issue is going to be what happens with the Big Ten teams. Because if Alabama loses to Georgia, then Georgia will be in, Alabama will not. But if there's another tight game between Michigan and Ohio State, especially if Michigan wins it, then it is quite likely that both of those teams would be in. So let's say Michigan beats Ohio State. Louisville would then, as a conference champion, have an edge over Ohio State, a one-loss non-champ.
Trevor, I want to stop you there.
Eyes.
I think they'd have two. I think they'd have 2 edges on Ohio State. One is the conference championship, and the second is the common opponent that they both played. Ohio State had to squeak by Notre Dame, and Louisville beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, you're right about that. That's a very good point, Jared. And here's what the committee will then have to do in order to elevate Ohio State over those 2 bars. They would have to decide whether or not Ohio State is unequivocally better than Louisville. Since Louisville has those 2 advantages, especially the advantage of a conference championship that Ohio State would not have. And it would be a similar thing with Michigan as well. But, Louisville will have a better resume to put up against Michigan than they would up against Ohio State. But either way, it's that standard. Would that one-loss non-champ in the committee's eyes be seen as unequivocally better than a one-loss Louisville conference champ? That's the discussion that would be had.
Couple of thoughts here. First, do you think Texas, who's got Texas Tech this week and then would have the Big 12 championship, I guess that would be Oklahoma State, do you think Texas is likely to lose one of those 2 games?
I think Texas is not. I think Texas is going to win out. And I think the football gods would want that because it would create all kinds of issues if then Alabama wins a tight one against Georgia. Because if that happens, there's your massive national chaos agent. But I think Texas has a very good chance to win out. Now, if they do, the thing about them is that they've got that win over Alabama. If Georgia beats Alabama, the committee would have an excuse to keep Texas out. They only have them at 7 right now anyway. Mm-hmm. But if Alabama beats Georgia and Texas wins out, then Texas as a Big 12 champ would also have a victory over the SEC champ on the SEC champ's home field. And it would be extraordinarily difficult for the committee to keep Texas out. If that's the case, you've got Alabama and Texas and an undefeated Big Ten champ and possibly an undefeated Florida State, and most likely Georgia would stay in the hunt. There's all kinds of chaos that could happen there. But if Texas loses and if Alabama loses to Georgia, it bails the committee out.
Well, don't you kind of feel like, again, just where I sit, I mean, I don't think Alabama's going to beat Georgia, right?
Well, they might. I mean, the way Alabama's playing right now, it's very possible.
Really?
And keep in mind that Ladd McConkey didn't play in this last game for Georgia. I think it was Tennessee. And so he's still kind of banged up. And then Brock Bowers, their great tight end, was limping against Tennessee. So you never know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I just think that Georgia's going to win. The winner of the Big Ten's in. The winner of the Pac-12's in. If Oregon beats Washington, Oregon goes. If Washington beats Oregon, Washington goes. And then if Texas wins out, Texas is in. If Texas loses, then I believe, Florida State would have to be undefeated, but I don't know that they're going to without Jordan Travis, and the having the whole Jordan Travis thing may throw a huge wrench for them. I mean, I really think that it'll all work itself out unless Alabama beats Georgia. Then if Alabama beats Georgia, we're going to have a constitutional crisis with the college football playoff.
Yeah, in that case, they should just say, okay, we're supposed to have 12 teams in the playoff next year.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and make it this year. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out how to do it.
Trevor,
but history shows us that it does work out.
What do you make of Tennessee's loss to Georgia? I mean, I saw Tennessee fans on Saturday that were really upset about it. I mean, I expected this to happen, so I didn't feel one way or another that it was good or bad. I just think that, this is where Tennessee is with Joe Milton, and Georgia's still the national, they're the two-time defending champ.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, all Georgia had to do to win this game was to limit the Tennessee running game. And, Tennessee ran the ball pretty well, but the problem was that their passing attack couldn't make up for it. I mean, Tennessee only converted 2 of 11 third downs in that game. Part of the reason was that their running game was too inconsistent. They had too many plays that weren't keeping them even with the chains. And so they ended up with third and long too often, and Joe Milton couldn't push the ball down the field against that Georgia secondary well enough. I mean, Tennessee did more yards per carry on the ground than they did yards per pass attempt, because Milton and the downfield passing attack just wasn't there. And so, they weren't equipped to bulldoze the Georgia front seven out of the way to create a dominant rushing attack. And because they weren't equipped to do that, the passing attack wasn't able to take over.
Last one for you. Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics and by Twin Peaks. Is Caleb Williams, is there a red flag with him right now in the NFL? You have the comments from the dad in which he said, we want ownership in a team, which is ridiculous. You've got, the tears after the loss to Washington with the mom, which, I'm not sure that's a huge deal, but if you're the quarterback in New York or Boston, that's going to be a problem. And then he didn't speak to the media after the game the other night when they got their rear end spanked by UCLA. It just seems like one thing after another with Caleb Williams. Is there a huge red flag there, Trevor?
I don't think so. I don't think the tears is a big deal, just because there's so much pressure built up and he's carrying that team. And when they lost that game and he was seen crying in the stands, and when the dam bursts and you don't have to hold it together anymore, sometimes it really bursts heavily. And it did in that moment. And that's just what happens when you're under that kind of pressure. And he's played well under pressure. I don't mind that. I would worry a little bit about the dad, because if I'm an NFL team, I'm thinking, hey, we're drafting you, not you plus your dad. So is he going to be influencing you over what's going to happen and what your career is going to be like and how you're going to practice and all the rest of it? Or is this going to be you? And they do need to ask him that. And they'll have visits and they'll see him at the combine and things like that. But I would worry about that a little bit, because the last thing you need is a repeat of certain highly drafted quarterbacks who have come in and demanded special consideration for their families. And they've come in and branded their training camps with sponsors, and they've gotten hurt and then dictated to the offensive coordinator how they would be used going forward, because that's what their agent tells them to do. These are things that the father situation could be a red flag, but the teams need to figure that out before they draft him.
Trevor Maddich is presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics and Twin Peaks. Trevor, great stuff. Have a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Jared. You too.
Yep, Trevor Maddich joining us on the program as always. Preds with an improbable, unbelievable come-from-behind victory yesterday. General Manager Barry Trotz joins us next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. It is 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, so we are awaiting a discussion here with Preds GM Barry Trotz, who is going to join us in just a second. And hold on. Okay, as we are efforting that along. So we'll be joined by Barry Trotz in just a second. So last night, the Predators played Colorado. And this is what they played the two games last week where they lost at home to Arizona and Anaheim. And I was kind of ready to just kind of pack it up and say, look, we all wanted a rebuild. We all wanted a new GM. We all wanted a new coach. These things are going to take time, so it may be a long season. Then they went and they beat Chicago. So they beat Chicago, and after they beat Chicago, they turned around and they played Colorado. Now, Colorado 2 years ago won the Cup and is really, really good and still has all those really good players, and they had a 3-2 lead with about 30-something seconds left, and the Predators tied the game with the 6-on-5. Then the Predators scored with almost no time left. Play the cut.
So the puck put on the left wing side. Cleared out. McCarr goes back to get it. Fumbles with it. Puts it on the end wall. He wipes out. In front, Cole Smith. That one stopped. They score! They score! The Predators, they're jumping all over on the ice and on the bench. Incredibly, they have come back to take a 4-3 lead with 21.6 seconds to go.
So they end up taking the lead. They end up winning the game. And I looked at the standings, and they were in last place last week, and they had a 15% chance on money puck. And now I look at it, and the Predators are sitting there. Now, again, it's not perfect, but the Predators are sitting there in sixth place, and they've got a shot, with a good week this week. St. Louis is ahead of them. They'll play St. Louis on Friday. And so maybe I spoke too soon last week. Predators general manager Barry Trotz joins us now on the program, presented by Gary Force Acura and Pourvu. So, Barry, let's start with last night. You're up in your box. You're getting beat 3-2 with under a minute to go. You got the 6-on-5. Take me through the Barry Trotz emotional train for the last minute of the game last night.
Well, I think, I really liked the way we played against a very good Colorado team. I watched them a couple nights before dismantle a very good Dallas team. And I thought our whole game we played pretty well. Obviously, our 5-on-5 game was solid. Our special teams game, we struggled a little bit giving up a power play goal and a shorthanded goal. But I really liked our game. I liked our energy. I liked our structure. I liked our ability to be on our toes. As we've talked, I want to be in a more attacking. I want to do all those things as a general manager, and my coaches delivered that. And last night I thought we played a complete game. And once we got the puck, we pulled the goaltender, and we had a couple really good looks. And as soon as the puck kept coming back to us, I think it was the third or fourth time, I said to my assistant general managers to my left, I said, "We're scoring." And sure enough, we were able to score. And I started walking to the booth where we have watching the replay, and they dropped the puck, and all of a sudden I just saw Cole Smith chasing down Cale Makar, and then all of a sudden we scored again. So great set of emotions. But what I loved is we played on our toes, and we played the full 60 minutes, and we got a victory against a very good opponent, and the crowd was fantastic, and the outcome for us was fantastic. It was as I said, we've got to learn to win. The last couple games, that process hopefully is starting to hopefully galvanize where you got to play the 60 minutes to get some points, and it was a fantastic game to watch, and I thought it was a fantastic game on both parties, the Avalanche and us.
Barry, I was getting nervous on Saturday against the Blackhawks, and that game went right down to the wire, and you guys put the empty netter in and ended up winning. And then last night, obviously, it played that. I'm convinced that that's what I thought this entire season was going to look like. And it didn't feel that way in the first month of the year, but where every game, whether it's a team like Chicago or whether it's a team like Colorado, every game is going to go right down to the wire. Good goaltending last night. Are you kind of feeling right now that, you know what, now things are starting to settle in and that you're looking at a team that maybe you thought you had that you didn't see through the first month?
Yeah, I think so. It changes a little bit. I mean, our team has sort of evolved with the different kinds of injuries we've had, the new system, the new players. You look at on the Western trip, we were missing 2 veteran defensemen in McDonough and Shen, where we really need them against some of those bigger clubs, and we didn't fare too well in a couple of games. We came back home, and I thought we played, entertaining hockey. We played stretches of 2 periods where, we would play really solid, allow the other team only 10 shots, and then we'd sort of just fall apart in the third period and not be able to close out the deal. And we did it with a couple of maybe some veteran defensemen out, and then now you see Tommy Novak go out with an injury, and Cody Glass went out last night, and our center ice is now challenged. So we're facing a little adversity, but what we're also doing is learning to adapt, and being able to adapt is sort of the process that you have to have the mindset that you can win with people out, and I think we're starting to get that. I use the term, you got to get comfortable when it's uncomfortable, and then you can get some wins. So hopefully that's the process. I know I want to say we're galvanizing and it'll be perfect, but there'll be some bumps on the road. But I like the fact that there's a lot of fight in our hockey club, and they're playing entertaining hockey.
Barry Trotz is with us. How do you brought up Cody Glass. How do you feel about the center depth? What is kind of the plan with him now out? I guess it's week to week. What's the plan with him out and with Tommy Novak being out as long as he's expected to be out?
Well, we're both going to miss those guys, especially on the power play. They're both, Cody's a net front guy on the number 1 unit, and Tommy was the sort of the playmaker on the number 1 unit, and I thought we had some really good pieces, but we still have some good pieces. I love the way Philip Forsberg is playing. That's the superstar that I know. Roman Yossi's adapted to the system and is playing very well. Ryan O'Reilly, as advertised, is night in and night out, finds ways. I mean, you look at example last night. We got a couple shots, and there's some loose pucks in that 6-on-5, and who wins the battle to keep that puck alive or get it to the point so we can reset and attack again? And it was Ryan O'Reilly, and those are moments that players really notice, and those are moments that coaches really notice. He might not even be on the score sheet, but he finds a way. So what you've seen all year, you've seen a guy like Parsonen go on the wing and back to center. So I think the plan is Parsonen move back to the center ice position, and I think with us playing every second day from now till Christmas, I'll probably recall another Admiral from Milwaukee and just give us some center depth.
Do we think that the recall would be a one of the young prospects, or would it be maybe more somebody that's got a little NHL experience under their belt?
I think right now, because we are young, I think the first call up is going to be one of the older prospects or one of the older veteran guys. I'd just be honest there. I think that's the right thing to do at this point in time. What that does when you pull one of those guys up is they come up, they're familiar, they fit in seamlessly, and what it does is elevate one of your young centermen up and allow them to develop with more minutes, more responsibility. So just from my experience, that would be the process I'd like to see. I'd like to see our young guy elevated and not jump by someone who is, has some NHL creed and trust with the coaching staff. I think you allow that player to take up another step and more responsibility in the minor league level and see if they can carry the load while one of those veteran players is not there.
Barry, we kept asking you early in the season about, Tomasino being in and out of the lineup and his development. And then last week, I think it was Parsonen that we were talking about. And last night, it was Luke Evangelista who got the scratch. I know how much you like Luke Evangelista. I know how much you believe in Luke Evangelista. But I heard after the game, Andrew Burnett talked about how he felt like the last 4, 5, 6 games had not been up to his standards. What have you kind of seen, like, from the inside, when a young guy has been scratched with this group, the way that they've approached it, the way that they've worked them, and the way that they've worked them back in? Have you seen that to be really beneficial for the development, and how do you feel about it with Evangelista?
Well, I feel the coaching staff has done a tremendous job. I think one thing that you want with your players is you want to be honest with them. You want to tell them why, and you want to show them why. And when they don't perform at the standards that at least you expect of them in their development or where their game has been, because all these young players have shown their, I'll say, not their ceiling, but their ceiling in this moment. And if they're not reaching it and it starts to slide, there's something about a urgency level that brings the player back to the square one. And usually when a player falls off, it's usually it's in two areas. It's falling off in their production and their work ethic, their detail within the group setting and what is expected of them. And the third thing, if they're not, it sometimes plays with their confidence. So when you're up front with a player and honest with them, and they're seeing each other sort of being sat out. We sat out Yakov Trenin, for instance, who's got a lot of veteran, swagger, been around for a few years. It just reset him. He looked at the game differently. It reset his mind. It's almost like a weight off a player's back sometimes when you give him a reset and say, okay, watch. When you get back in, just play free again. And I think the coaching staff's done a really good job with Yak. It's no different with a veteran player than a young player, is that when you see them slipping from the standard that you hold them to, there's nothing wrong with giving a reset, because the difference being a minor league player and an NHL player is consistency. And it's not consistency necessarily in your production. It's consistency in your game and your responsibilities and your role. And if part of that is production, then so be it. But a lot of times it's the other stuff all around the game and their focus.
So what you're telling me is the way that you treat the players is that you treat them the way that I treat electronics, which is when something's not working right, I take the plug out, I wait 10 seconds, and then I plug it back in?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is a great analogy. I'm going to use that. I'm going to say, Jared, I heard this. It's a great analogy. It really is, because I have the same thing. Sometimes the best reset is turning it off and then turning it on again, and it just resets. And what it does is it makes you look through a different lens a little bit as a player.
Barry, what are we looking at as far as the return of Ryan McDonough and Luke Shin, and maybe to help out that defensive core? And then I got to tell you, this Stastny that was playing last night, he was flying up and down the ice, and I also thought he had a beautiful pass yesterday in the game. I mean, I don't know kind of how you see him, and I know that defense is important, but where are you on the injured veterans and then Stastny's performance last night?
Well, with the injured veterans, number one, with Ryan McDonough, I expect him to, I know he's going to morning skate tomorrow, and there's a chance that he plays tomorrow. If not, I expect him right after that, very shortly, to join the group. He made a good recovery, and he's a true pro. So we're playing a team like Calgary and St. Louis. They got some size in the next few games. So I expect Ryan to probably be in the mix fairly shortly, and then shortly after that, I would think Luke would be right behind him. Just Luke's missed so much time, and as we say, I don't know if it would be fair to the group. Number one, I don't know if it's fair for Ryan and the Luke to say come into the same game if they were able to. So I think they're going to get separated a little bit. That would be my recommendation. what I've seen through experience. And then what I've seen in Spencer Stastny, I think he's an elite skater. I think, seeing him play last year, I think he's got a really bright future with the Preds because his game fits into the way I want to play. In this organization, he's got tremendous skating ability. He's a really good pro for a young man. He's a low maintenance, smart hockey player that I think will fit in seamlessly for us for a number of years. So if we got everybody healthy and just because of the business of the game, there's nothing wrong with having Spencer go down to and play in Milwaukee and continue to play. And then when he gets a chance again, they come up. And I see a future with Spencer Stastny and young Delgado, who came up earlier. He had 3 points in 5 games and really showed that they can play in the National Hockey League or at least fill in for now and give us some quality minutes.
Last one for you. Barry Trotz is with us, presented by Gary Force Acura and Porvu. So at this point in the year, you've got Calgary tomorrow, and then you go to St. Louis. Do you look at the standings? I mean, you guys this time we talked last week, you guys were in last place. Now you've moved up a couple of spots. You'll get your shot with St. Louis on Friday. I know it's only November. I know it's U.S. Thanksgiving, but do you guys look at that, or is it more of a, hey, we're just going to worry about Calgary for right now and not even think about it until later in the year?
Well, I can speak for myself, but I probably could speak for the group. I think as competitors, you always look at the standings. I do. I know I always did. And I think most people look at the standings and say, hey, we're starting to climb, and that's a good thing. But I think you keep it in perspective. You gotta be in the moment, and the moment's going to be Calgary tomorrow night. And I always try to focus on the moment. I never look past a week. I haven't for probably 20 years. I look at the week ahead and I say, you know what? Okay, we got to take care of business against Colorado, and then I don't worry about Calgary till we sort of put Colorado to bed, good, bad, depending on how the result went, and then we really focus on the next game. And then I would try to reset at the end of the week. And if we had a good week, you try to keep it going. If you had a bad week, you try to correct as many things as you can as quick as possible. And I used to have a thing when I coached was, I looked at it's probably impossible, to say, hey, we're going to catch up. We need to win 5 in a row to catch up in the standings. And it doesn't work that way. You have to sort of piece it. So I always looked at if we could play at a 666 pace over the rest of the season, we'll be in the playoffs. No question. And it might be even less than that. But, let's look at this week, see if we can get at least 4 points out of the 3 games. And if you get more, fantastic. But you got to keep in the focus every night the opponent you're playing. So there's different ways. It's all in how you look at it and the mindset that you keep.
Barry Trotz joining us as always. Barry, if I don't see you at the arena tomorrow, have a wonderful U.S. Thanksgiving.
Absolutely, and same to you and all your listeners. Wonderful time of the year, Thanksgiving. It's we got so many blessings. Myself, you do, and all the families living in this great city of Nashville. We got so many blessings. So I'm wishing everybody a happy holiday.
Very well said. Appreciate you. Good luck tomorrow.
All right, take care.
Yep, Barry Trotz joining us on the program presented by Gary Force Acura and by Porvu. With over 10,000 square feet of wine, spirits, and over 1,500 domestic import and craft beers, with a massive array of ready-to-drink cocktails located on Indian Lake Boulevard in Hendersonville. And I'm not, I'd say this about Porvu. You're having the family over for Thanksgiving, that may be the place you need to go out and check out. Porvu, your big parties as well. That is Porvu out there in Hendersonville. I do have a couple of thoughts on what Barry said. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
can it serve as a measuring stick kind of game?
Well, I think I think it's one of those games that you reflect back at the end of the year or in a little while, maybe it catapults you to something, where I don't know if it's a measuring stick, but I think it's, if you can go out and play against them and win against them, I think it's a self-confidence boost, that there's a belief that if we do things the right way, we can play and beat anybody. So a little bit of, you don't say a statement game for us, but a little bit of a game that we can look back to and say, if we do these things, we can play with anybody.
That's Andrew Burnett. Let me just say this when it comes to Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett, which is, you guys know I was not a fan of the previous administration at the end. I just felt like it was time for a change with GM and the coach. And so when they finally did make the change and they brought Barry Trotz in there, and then the Predators won a bunch of games and it looked like John Hines was going to keep his job. And I had kind of succumbed to the fact that he was probably going to keep his job and had done a decent job down the stretch last year, even though I wasn't really a big believer in him or his style of play or anything like that. When they fired him, when Barry Trotz fired him, I was elated. And then they hired Andrew Burnett. And I don't really know Andrew Burnett. I've interviewed him on the show twice, and I ran into him at the airport like a week after he got hired. And I talked with him and told him kind of what the show was about and kind of how I approach things. And his wife even looked at me and she said, "Are you pre-apologizing?" And I said, "Well, it's like those relationship books that tell you to set boundaries and expectations, more than anything else." So I may be biased, but I love the direction of this team. And when I get off the phone with Barry Trotz like that, you guys hear the conversation. Those are pretty much the only conversations Barry and I have, other than we run into each other at the arena. Hey, how you doing? Hey, that's it. You guys hear all the interaction between me and Barry. And when, like last week, when they were losing, I said, hey, maybe it's just not going to be the case this season. And he was saying it's a little too early for that. And then they win the Colorado game, and he tells you, hey, I'm looking at the standings. I'm thinking about the climb. Now, we have to worry about Calgary tomorrow, but then, and for some reason, I get excited when he talks about guys like Spencer Stastny, or he talks about the reason why they scratched Tomasino. Now they've scratched Parsonen. Yesterday it was Evangelista. He talks about how they scratched Trennan and why they do it. And, hey, it's like I said, it's like, oh, yeah, just unplug it and plug it back in. By the way, how did I know that was going to be Barry Trotz's way of trying to fix his electronics? Then again, that's my way of fixing electronics too. But plug it up, plug it back in. And for some reason, when I listen to them talk and I see the inspiration with which the team plays with, it makes me want to go to the game tomorrow. It makes me want to root for them. It makes me want to get excited, maybe not about this season, I don't know, but about the future. And maybe it's because I like them. Maybe it's because I was ready for a change. Or maybe it's because the Predators have the makings of an organization that has a plan. And I love when people do things the right way, and when people go about their business the right way, and then they get rewarded for it. And the Chicago game, they won the Chicago game. It was too close for my comfort. Though, boy, I tell you, looking at Connor Bedard out there in person on Saturday, he looks like a baby. He and I know he's 18, he looks like he's a sophomore in high school. He's pretty good, though. But that was a win you needed to have. It was good. Yeah. Last night was almost, I think, like a reward for the progress and the effort and where the organization is headed. And it gets me really, really excited. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Somebody said you may be biased with a bunch of question marks. Look, I try not to be. I'm not Sean Hannity, right? Where Sean Hannity, how Sean feels. You don't even have to watch the show. You don't know what he's going to say, but you know how he feels. When it comes to me, I want whatever is in the best interest of the Titans and the Predators to win. I do. Even though David Poile drove me crazy, I wanted them to win. I didn't think they had a chance to beat Carolina in 2021. But when that puck dropped, I was right there in my seats with my dad, and we were high-fiving when Matt Duchene scored and they won in overtime. So I want these teams to win. I had a conversation with somebody about this today. And I said, I was comparing somebody in town to a national political commentator, and they said to me, well, who would you be? And I said, I hope that I would be compared to like a Mad Dog Russo or a Tim Russert or like that kind of guy, where when it comes to me, you may not like me, but it's not like there's an agenda behind me that wants, like, I don't want Barry Trotz to win necessarily because I like Barry Trotz, but I want Barry Trotz to win because that's my team. Like, I cannot stand right now the way the Titans are being run, but I want them to win. Like on Sunday, I told somebody today, I go, I cannot. Now, Colin Cowherd does his show like he's kind of above the emotion, right? Like he looks into the camera straight on the one shot and says, okay, Cowboy fan, this is how you should feel. I can't do that. I think a lot of people in the media are like, you guys are fans and you guys yell at your TVs, and they pretend like either they don't yell at the TV or they think they're above yelling at the TV. I'm watching a game Sunday, I'm yelling at the TV. I don't know about you guys. And so I might be biased because I like them, but at the same time, like, if you don't win, you got to go. Like, that's how I feel. Like, we want you to win. And if you don't win or we don't, or I don't think you can win, you got to go. Like, that's how I feel about it. I like Clark Lee. I do. I think Clark Lee's a really good man. I think he's a smart guy, and I do think he's a good football coach. But I'm watching Vandy play right now, and I'm like, dude, you got to win now. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on the program. Stillman and Company. Boy, people were mad about my clean house with the Titans. I mean, are we watching the same thing? But there is a text in here that I want to get to that kind of reminds me of the Titans. We'll get to that coming up next here. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. When it comes to not making changes on the coaching staff, you talk about, just going back out there and coaching it and repping it and things like that. What gives you the confidence that coaching it and repping it with the same coaches?
Because I have the luxury of having played this game in this league, and I know what we're coaching. I know what we're teaching. I never blamed Dean Pease or Matt Patricia or Bill Belichick or Romeo Crennel or Rob Ryan. And I couldn't get to the pass rusher, or I missed a tackle, or I went the wrong way. And that's the luxury that I have. Never blamed a coach for my. Let me finish, and then you can interrupt me. And so I know what we're coaching, and I know what we're teaching. I'm in the meetings. We're going to continue to find ways to help our players and to demand that they play with great effort and improve our details, improve our fundamentals, because I know that that's what works. Go ahead.
Well, these players may not be as good as you. So when you, as a player,
that had nothing. My comment had nothing to do with my ability. It was my perspective.
Right.
That was
in the past. When it's come to the perspective, you've talked about the training staff and the injuries, and you've said that you never blamed a trainer as a player for injuries. But then guys like AJ who get injured here, David Long, go off and they play in these other places. And so at that point, it starts to become, well, maybe it could be that issue that you are not considering.
I appreciate and certainly understand that. There's going to be guys. I'm not going to debate whether guys go on and get injured. Like, I'm not going to talk about AJ. I have a great relationship with AJ, and David Long was a player that we've had here for many years, and whether he was injured in the spring or not injured or what. And I'm not going to have that debate. I don't think that making changes to a coaching staff at this point in time is warranted. I believe in our staff. I believe in our players, and we're going to find ways to improve. We're going to find ways to, win after we find ways to improve.
There you go. That was Vrabel and I want you guys to know, like, I'm sure I sounded like a big a-hole in all of that, but it's just like, okay, you say you're not going to change the coaching staff. Why, when it's the same problems over and over again? And it feels like the answer, and this is why I kind of, pushed back a little bit, but it kind of feels like the answer is, because I played in the game and I know. And I guess I'm just trying to just explain it to me about what is, what do you think of these, that, just tell us. And I want to read to you some texts because these came pouring in while Barry Trotz was on the show. One texter says, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, can you imagine if Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel were as articulate, forthright, candid, and transparent with the Titans fan base as Barry Trotz is in representing the Predators? I bet public opinion of Titans leadership would be completely different right now, and yet it would not negatively affect the locker room or product on the field. Another texter texted in and said, the best thing about Trotz is he's honest and transparent. It's so refreshing, and I wish a certain Titans coach would take notes. And another texter said, Barry Trotz is great. He comes on the radio frequently. The Predators are struggling and rebuilding, but he has respect for the fans and builds our confidence. What stops Rand Carthon from doing the same? If we understood the Titans' plans in a reasonable way, it would help a lot. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what I feel like is a huge problem right now. I mean, the problem is that they're losing. That's the problem, right? But you can be an a-hole when you win. You can do whatever you want when you win. Nobody cares. But you can't do that when you're losing. And when I hear a lot of people that make defenses of the Titans, and they say, well, we knew this was going to be a rebuilding year. Well, they didn't say that. Barry Trotz came on this show last week and said, this might be painful, but stay with us through it. Rand Carthon never said that. Mike Vrabel never said that. When it comes to Will Levis, do they ever tell us anything like, Will's doing this really well. We really wish Will could do this, but we really are excited about Will. And, this is why we waited on Will. And this is why, and maybe one of these days the transparency will burn Barry Trotz, or maybe if they don't win, it won't matter, or whatever. But I do feel like it's hurt them, the way that they have comported themselves. And then you have it compared to Barry Trotz. And it's not my opinion, but it is what you all are texting into this show about just the attitudes. Like one texter says, I think the problem is the players are losing confidence in the coaching. I don't know that. I don't see that. I don't hear that. But as far as us and the plan, I absolutely think that we're losing confidence trying to figure out what this team is supposed to be or not be. 615-737-1025. There was one thing that I said 2 years ago. I said, we're going to learn. And last night, I think, was the final nail in the coffin. We've learned. Explain what that is next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Good protection, aired out. Valdez-Scantling dropped it. Well, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who can just flat out fly, he lines up in the slot. He gets matched up one-on-one on Bradley Roby. And Roby, there are not many guys who can run with this guy. And Roby cannot. And that ball was perfect.
They know I'm going to keep firing it. That's just who I am. I'm going to fire it to the guy who's open. And they're going to make the plays. I mean, it happens. I mean, I threw an interception in the red zone if I just flattened Jay Watt off. So that didn't just lose the game. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that happened throughout the game. And so you just got to keep firing.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling dropped the game-winning touchdown last night. Then Justin Watson dropped the ball on 4th down. By the way, did you know that last night's Monday Night Football game was the number 1 most watched game since, I want to say, like the number 1 most watched Monday Night Football game since 1996? That's how many people tuned in for the Super Bowl rematch. 2 quarterbacks, 2 good teams, star players galore. Half of them came from you. That drew a huge TV audience. So in 2022, 3 teams, Kansas City, Green Bay, and yes, the Titans, decided not to pay their star wide receivers. Kansas City decided not to pay Tyreek Hill. Green Bay decided not to pay Devontae Adams, though there may be a little bit more there about Adams not wanting to be in Green Bay anymore, not thinking Rodgers was going to be there long term or wanting to be with Derek Carr. But again, they ended up not paying Devontae Adams and you. This is the Christian Kirk effect, where Jacksonville needed a receiver. Everybody franchise tagged their receiver. There were no receivers on the free agent market. The best one was Kirk, and Jacksonville paid him so much money that he could not refuse. And he's been a nice fit. But it reset the market. And at that point, those 3 teams decided not to pay their star receivers. And I said when that happened, I said, we'll see. If these star receivers are really worth it, if they're really that good, or if this is going to be something like what Minnesota did, where it's fine. We'll trade you Stephon Diggs, and then we'll just go draft Justin Jefferson. Well, guess what? They are worth it. And it's okay because you're not the only team out there that screwed this up, because even Andy Reid and the Hunt family screwed up by not paying Tyreek Hill the money. Because it is obvious that Kansas City's offense, and I know they won the Super Bowl last year, but Kansas City's offense is severely lacking without Tyreek Hill. That ball to Valdez-Scantling is a touchdown if that's Tyreek Hill and Kansas City wins. And so if I'm the Ravens, or if I'm Jacksonville, or if I'm one of these Miami, and I know Miami already lost to them, but if I'm one of these teams in the AFC, I'm looking at that Kansas City offense, and I'm thinking, you know what? We may be able to knock them out in the playoffs. I mean, we really may be able to knock them out. Kansas City had to have so many things go right last year to win the Super Bowl, and maybe because Mahomes is so good, and Kelsey's so good, and Chris Jones is so good, and my guy Chris Jones had a game last night. But maybe because those guys are so good, it'll end up being a wash in the end. But I don't know if Kansas City can win the Super Bowl again with these receivers. I don't know. They schemed up a great game plan with Kadarius Toney in the Super Bowl. They had Juju Smith-Schuster, who was kind of more like a tight end. But they just do not have the weapons on offense. Kelsey, yes, he's great. He had a bad game last night. Pacheco is really good. Rashee Rice is coming along. But he just doesn't have the dude. And they've tried. They drafted Sky Moore high. They drafted Rashee Rice high. I don't know why they cheaped out on DeAndre Hopkins, but they did. They're trying kind of to cheap out on Chris Jones a little bit now. But those 3 guys, AJ, Devontae, and Tyreek, 3 different kinds of receivers, all 3 elite players. And we were going to find out, can you just replace your guy? Or do you have to pay your guy? And the answer is pay your guy. So now I think wide receiver has become a position, quarterback. receiver may now be higher than left tackle, and I certainly think it's higher than corner. As the running back starts to fall, the receiver starts to go up. And I look at these receivers that are coming out, whether it's Harrison or Malik Neighbors or the kid from Florida State, and I'm like, those kids are going to go off the board at 3, 5, and 6 because the value of receiver is now even higher. That was the experiment. Could Green Bay replace Devontae Adams with the package they got in return for Devontae? No. Could Kansas City replace Tyreek Hill? No. Could Tennessee replace A.J. Brown? No. We now see. That's how the league works. Receiver becomes more valuable than ever. That's going to do it for us. Great show today, Stillman and Company. We'll see you all tomorrow at 2 ESPN Radio. Coming up next.